Fuck all. Welcome to Beerfield. If anybody would like a podcast co-host, I have one that's free to a good home.
Aw. Good home.
I
don't need much. Just some water and some food.
Chris Hopper at Beerfield Hop, Dan Thury at Beerfield Thury. By the way, he's the one free to a good home.
He's so mad at me right now.
Yeah, well, it's entirely your fault.
I know, almost, yeah. Hey, to be fair, though, next year, the Bears have $30 more million in cap space than any other team.
Which is relevant to the conversation that happened before we got on the show that now we have to try to rehash now that we're on the show. But anyway.
I won't blame our guests.
No, don't.
I won't blame Miguel. And I mean, it's his fault, but I won't blame him.
Yeah, you shouldn't blame Miguel. By the way, it's that time of year. At Pro Football PSI. I think that's right. That's what's in the show title, so it freaking better be.
That's true. How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on again.
We are always happy to have you on this time of year because you do things that a lot of people I've noticed are kind of trying to mimic at this point. Like, you've had your number for a long time and actually have a lot of, like, smart shit that goes into Pro Football PSI, that goes into the PSI in general. Also, Sippin' Pretty is a good beer, not to spoil it.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I've seen at least 4 or 5 different people that are tossing out scores now as a way to try to quantify how they feel about prospects, myself included, for internal use only. It's in beta phase.
Oh, there's a lot of good people out there doing this. I mean, you know, the more the better, right? Like, I'm not here to monopolize it or anything, so it's always great to see because I learn from them as well. And it's just always exciting to see how other people think about it. Because, you know, no model's perfect. We're all flawed in some way, so it's interesting to see how that all comes together for everyone else. But yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where even I'm thinking, like not gonna lie, I've been thinking, like, is this my last year? Like, should I let other people just take over at this point? Do I continue doing this?
I've debated it. We'll I like knowing things too much, though. It's this right here that keeps
me
going. After we get through this right here,
it itches. It itches in the back of, like, every time we get to the off season. I'm like, do I still want to do this? I don't know. And then, you know, we start getting all excited and talking about prospects, and then you just have to find out anytime a new name drops that's getting in there. I'm like, I go research it, and yeah. So I guess while that itch is still there, and while I have the time, I guess I'll continue. But I'm probably closer to the end than I am the beginning at this point.
I think that's where a lot of us end up being, especially as we've seen, like, the Twitterverse evolve and how we, you know, get our information, and just, you know, a lot of people have really taken off, and it's I've been starting to want to learn less from people. I like, not learn less, but learn more from less people. There's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of, you know, fake detectives out there.
A lot of hot takes.
Hot
take artists. A lot of people promoting medical videos under Adam Schefter tweets. Things like that.
There's only so much
engagement farming or something.
Yeah,
apparently that was the thing. I don't know. One thing that at least for me this off season is I felt like there was a lot less kind of arguing and fights and all the things that usually break out in fantasy Twitter when it's boring and there's nothing to do.
It's got there, kind of. Right now we're on Kenneth Walker. Apparently that's been a hot debate the last 2 days.
I think there have been some ones that I've just, like, missed. Like the engagement farming thing. Like, I saw some people tweet about it, but I clearly missed, like, the genesis of it. Yeah. So I'm either not following the right people, which is good, or I've muted everyone that starts all the drama, which, congrats. I think I've nailed it. I think I finally have, like, serenity on my timeline, and it's great because it's been really nice being on Twitter this offseason.
I do have to agree with you. It does feel less bitchy on there. Like you get the same people arguing about the same prospects, just in different tones. But I feel like I've muted and blocked enough people and just unfollowed enough people to where I think I've rid of myself of the terrible clicks.
Yeah. I think I've been around long enough now that I realize that everyone's just arguing, different sides of the same coin. And it's like, you're not getting anywhere with it. Like, yes, you're right. And yes, you're also right. Move on.
Just realize nobody knows a damn thing. That's what it comes down to.
Take it just to, feel free to.
And so, like, until someone can do a whole model based on what's in between the players' ears, I don't think anything right now is going to ever be groundbreaking enough to change the game.
Oh God, that one was.
I had to bring it out. I think I was super serious about it too. It's
yikes! I've seen a lot of things with data. Not just like in football, but like real life too. That was interesting. As soon as anyone who. It clearly didn't take anyone who's ever just like worked in data before, which that is my 9 to 5 for those that are listening and are unaware. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, "That's utter bullshit."
Yeah,
there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
I had so many questions, and I'm like, and none of them you're going to be able to answer. And then when I think someone was finally starting to push and prod, and then it's proprietary or something, I'm like, and that's when I know it's a big red flag.
Well, you said it you went through a bunch of articles and there's try to quantify it. No. It's so dumb.
No,
what are we doing here?
I don't need to know your exact formula or whatever you're doing. I just need to know what went into it. And if you can't tell me that, that's not. Yeah, just give me the high level. Help me try to understand. I don't need to know all the little details, which would then make that proprietary. But yeah. Anyways,
Eli 5 this damn thing. All right.
Yeah.
By the way, this whole episode presented by FF Faceoff, fffaceoff.com, for all your podcast, Pro Football PSI, Beerfield needs, is we're part of that family of shows, and I know that's where you released PSI, so we'll have more on them in a minute. We'll actually probably structure this show based off of some of the rookie mocks that they've been running, just like we did last week, so... Good stuff going on there. Make sure you check out the site. A lot of good content there right now. That being said, we're talking wide receivers and tight ends this week. We talked running backs and quarterbacks last week. Go check that episode out on YouTube. The podcast audio is a little screwy. I will have that fixed tonight as well, so you can listen to both of these in series if you want to torture yourself for 6 hours, because I think last week's episode was like 3.5.
My God, I got kind of here. I was like, I just got to go to bed. It's so angry.
Yeah, well, we're further in than we were last time before I took my shirt off. So,
yeah,
this podcast too.
Well, it's late night, and
it is.
The lights don't always turn on with the content we provide. So we got to get risque.
Whatever the viewers want, I guess.
They took a poll and they're like, "We got to see Hopper shirtless."
It wasn't that. That was not. No.
Is that what the Nielsen ratings came back with? Is, less shirts?
Less shirts.
Well, it wasn't Nielsen. It was this ratings metric a guy has in between his ears.
He was like, the best way to raise your character score is to just go shirtless. I heard it's the best way.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, we'll start with you. What are you drinking on?
I am drinking Urban Forest. It's a brewery out of Rockford, Illinois. It's actually where I was working at today. This is their beer called Glass Slipper. This is their Pilsner. As the listeners know, that Hopper and I are on a big German, clean style, back to the basic style beer. So it's good to get something that was hyper local. To bring onto the show. This is 4.8%, really, really basic can. basic beer that I'm excited to crack into.
He says we're back. We're on a German kick as
oh my god,
cracking open a double dry hopped IPA. So,
well, it can't be the same.
Every
thing
now
week.
and again, I'm in a mood. I've been on that kick for the last few weeks. Actually, it was a lot of bourbon last week. Old Irving Brewing Company out of Chicago, Illinois. This is their Beezer. It's a double dry hopped IPA featuring Citra Mosaic. It just says Citra Mosaic a bunch across the can. So, featuring Citra Mosaic. I clearly didn't read the label before this can read. So, let you know what I think about probably a little more than halfway through the episode. And Miguel, you're sipping pretty?
Yeah, I am sipping pretty. Odell Brewing Co. I tried their version of this last year. It was like a guava one. It was really good. And now they've got this. Actually, I have no idea what this is. Passion fruit, I think, is what it is. It's a great sour. I'm a big sour guy, so this one hits.
Very nice. All right, let's move on to some news, which I also did not prepare for at all. So let's start with Deebo Samuel once out of San Francisco.
Timey-wimey back to pre-show.
Back to pre-show.
Yep, we'll run it back.
Go ahead and start running.
I mean, you're the one that asked us the question, Miguel.
I did. The guest asked the question. What do we think of this Deebo Samuel news? Do we think it's real? Do we think it's all cool heads are going to prevail? I don't know. I think it's really weird. As I said pre-show, just the way it was worded, that Deebo halted everything in the midst of the Niners kind of making that final push. You never really hear that language, that a player just decides that, hey, I'm just going to stop everything right as everything's happening. So I found that to be really curious, and more alarming as a result, because again, it's odd. So if it's true, just going to assume that it is. It's hard to see where Deebo Samuel can go. I tweeted out before the show that I thought that his the 49ers' best trading partner at this point are the Green Bay Packers because of Matt LaFleur. And of course, they just lost Devontae Adams, so they could use a new star wide receiver. And although they didn't pay Adams, so why would they pay Deebo? Or I guess they were trying to, but it was really Adams that wanted to leave, right?
Yeah.
He really wanted to be a Raider. So I guess they could probably do it. So I'll take that back. So that puts Green Bay really much square in that race for Deebo Samuel, especially since he's killed them before. And then the New York Jets. They've got the draft capital with multiple first-round picks. You've got Robert Saleh, who used to be on the 49ers coaching staff, so there's that connection. And you've had the New York Jets trying to go after Tyreek, who they didn't get, but then afterwards were on the record as saying they were going to be involved in any and all wide receivers that were available because they clearly want to set Zach Wilson up to succeed. And if they're willing to do anything to do that, I have to admit that I have to believe that Deebo Samuel would be that type of wide receiver that they would want to bring in. He fits the offense. He fits the team from like a leadership and personality standpoint, culture. Is the word I'm looking for. I just think that I think they've got to be the number one team, and otherwise after that, I don't know who else goes after him. Who has the draft capital? Who has the resources? It's pretty thin now after free agency.
So you asked us pre-show how many teams had multiple firsts. I figured I'd do, the good person and actually look it up. 8 teams. Lions, Texans, Packers, Chiefs, Saints. You were right about the Giants, obviously Jets, and the Eagles. Likely have the capital to make that move. I don't know if it'd take 2 firsts. Probably not.
No, but I think it could
but
take
at least
one next year.
Yeah,
like
it depends. He's 26 years old. He has yet to play a full season, but he's coming off of one of the more interesting seasons last year when he just missed one game last year. Interested, Hopper. What are your Sorry, you look like you're about to talk, and I was like, gotta get in.
No, I'm good. No, I was just saying that I think that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors here. I mean, there is the option to bet on yourself and try to get something longer in the offseason, but as you mentioned, already 26 years old, so go try to get yourself paid. They were apparently far apart on money. I think that this ultimately could be a lot of peacocking if you do see a move. I think during the draft is probably when I would anticipate that potentially happening. Let it unfold and then see if something can work out from there. I think that that's probably when I would anticipate that type of thing occurring, though. If he gets through the draft and there isn't a move, I think the market's going to be even less throughout the offseason heading into training camp. And, I mean, you could end up in a holdout situation, but I don't think Debo being moved is any more of a sure thing than, DK Metcalf or A.J. Brown being moved at this point until we hear the 49ers are fielding offers.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing that is going to cramp Debo's ability to get traded is that there are a lot of wide receivers that are reportedly available.
I think, right? I think Marquise Brown, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Debo. Is Metcalf a part of that? I'm not sure.
Metcalf's part of it as well.
I think Metcalf is, yeah. So
the Seahawks aren't talking, and neither are the Titans, but they're all kind of in that same boat of, last year their rookie deal, trying to get extensions done or get moved to get their extensions done.
And this is all Trent Baalke's fault.
Yes. I always fuck him.
All of it.
I hate Trent Baalke.
And who likes him?
Apparently, Khan from Jacksonville is the only one that actually they had a chance to bring in Rick Spielman as an advisory role, and they were like, "Nah, I don't want the wide receiver whisperer. I want Trent Baalke to make all my decisions."
It sounded to me like they rug pulled Spielman, like they
had and Byron Leftwich too, right?
Like they were putting him out there to kind of please the fans, and then as soon as it was evident that they didn't need to make that move, they were like, "Nope, we're not going to do that," and it's just going to be the Baalke show. Thanks, bye.
Jacksonville. I feel bad. Like, maybe they won't get ruined because maybe Trevor Lawrence will be good. But man, I feel bad for them. I feel bad.
Yeah. As far as landing spots go, I agree that the Packers would be a good one. The Jets would be a good one. There are teams there that are intriguing if a movie is made for him. I don't necessarily see it occurring with, we kind of said this when Tyreek Hill was moved for a King's share too. It's kind of like this draft class is expected to have a good amount of depth to it. And I'm not sure that you're going to get a team to pay a premium until you get to the draft, in which case, they're like, okay, we can have Debo, let's move it back, which, again, the Packers would be, a team that I think could fit that, or they get through the draft and really just missed out on whoever they had near the top of their board and want to go try to acquire Debo using, next year's draft capital when you get a little bit more time to figure it out. So
maybe Green Bay does use pick 22 and pick 28 to make that move too if the board does fall. If there's very wide receiver heavy to start the first round.
So the Jets offered 35, 38, and 69 for Tyreek. So John Chapman on Twitter just posted, should the Niners take the same trade?
I would take that. I mean, I would want more for Debo. He's 3 years younger than Tyreek. I mean, obviously injuries, so some injury concerns, but I wonder if Elijah Moore would be a part of it. I wonder if it wouldn't be just picks. You're looking at maybe having to remove or move away from, because I'm not saying that Debo would make Elijah Moore, unneeded, but it's not the same role because no one really has a Debo role, but it's kind of,
I think,
the same operation.
Doesn't though, because you could use either of them with gadgetry, but both of them are also just good regular ass wide receivers, especially Debo. And Debo's big enough to kind of operate wherever too in that capacity. So I mean, I don't think that you include Elijah Moore in that deal really at all, nor do you have to. If I'm the Jets, I don't include Elijah Moore in that deal because I want the most explosive offense I can put together, and Elijah Moore is definitely part of that. And I want the gadgetry I can put together, and I want to keep defenses on their toes. And if you don't know between Debo and Elijah Moore who's coming on the end around or out of the backfield or running routes or whatever, because both of those guys can do so much, you don't see the two types of those players on the team, but you also don't see types of those players in general that have, that type of ability as a receiver, that also play that gadget role. Elijah Moore and Debo are, they're not the same side-wise, but skill set-wise, they're cut damn near from the same cloth.
I'll be interested to see how it plays. I can definitely see him with the Jets picking at 10. I can see San Francisco trying to call him up and saying, hey, let's see if we can put something on paper. And they wouldn't say yes to Moore and pick 10, but
they're going to.
I think it won't take two first.
There's going to be a player involved. It's Denzel Mims.
Yeah, there'll be a player involved. It's going to be Corey Davis.
Denzel Mims.
Oh, God, no.
Denzel Mims, yeah.
So, of course, we've got family getting involved now and social media issues. So his brother went on Facebook to some group or something and said that they're going to request a trade. And now he's had to recant that on Instagram by saying that everyone took that out of context, basically, and that he doesn't know what his brother's doing. So, accountability all around.
Woo, it's like Odell's dad situation. So if it's not in season.
He literally said he's going to request a trade, and then you come back with, I don't know what the hell's happening.
Actually,
you guys are making things up.
Maybe he's talking about his Dynasty Football Leagues. Maybe that's what he means.
That's just classic social media.
And that's how I know and that's how I know there's posturing going on. All right. Moving on to more important things. The Lions re-signed Special Agent Tom Kennedy to a 1-year deal.
Special Agent.
Sorry, Miguel. We're a Special Agent Tom Kennedy show.
Yeah. You can say who. I don't think any of us would get offended.
Lions wide receiver. You don't have to. He knows who.
I know he does.
What? Sorry, I missed the question.
It's not.
It's not a question.
It was nothing.
Dan said you could say who because we're talking about Tom Kennedy, and I'm like, he knows who Tom Kennedy is. It's fine.
Oh, is that a real person?
Yes.
Tom Kennedy?
Yeah.
Never.
Yes.
I said the same thing. I think when we talked about him, we said
we talked about him last year.
That sounds like a Madden player that I drafted in the 6th round.
So when they had all kinds of injuries and stuff last year, we were looking at their depth chart, and we're like, they got Tom Kennedy, and Dan's like, it sounds like a special agent, so he's Special Agent Tom Kennedy now. And then I think
sounds like a fake CSI name.
Had a couple receptions and saw the field a little bit and didn't look terrible, so it's a good depth signing. Olamide Zaccheaus 1-year deal. The Falcons. He's currently their wide receiver 1, I think.
Auden Tate.
Right. Sorry, forgot.
I mean, it can't get worse. So, and at least Auden Tate plays outside.
I forgot that he did sign there. Yeah. They're clearly going to add people in the draft here. So
I got a better one for you.
Change.
Colts re-signed Ashton Dulin to a 1-year, $2.4 million deal.
Yeah.
Keeping the dream.
They put a tender on him, man.
They put a tender
and
on
it's
him.
It's just Pittman there.
And then they swiped.
It's got to be Dulin.
They put tender on him, and then they swiped right.
That's right. We're like, super like.
I forgot that was a thing, actually.
Yeah.
AJ Green said his communication with Kyler Murray in 2021 was lacking. Shocker there.
Oh, you mean like when he went into the end zone and didn't turn around on a 4th down play? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
4th down play,
in the end zone.
And he got picked, yeah.
Yep. Miles Boykin was released and subsequently claimed by the Steelers, I'm pretty sure.
And he'll be released again next.
Yeah, he's nothing.
He will. Yeah, a lot of hype. Let's talk about some other filler just so as I can scroll through this. Pizzagate.
Pizzagate.
Oh, USFL?
Yeah, the USFL.
Oh, yeah.
Davion Smith. And this is this is a total shit show. Have you followed any of the Twitter stuff that goes along with this? Like, have you just looked at Davion Smith's Twitter?
No,
I have not.
I didn't even know who it was that got cut. I just saw the video and was like, that's the most insane thing.
So Davion Smith was a nothing burger of a prospect coming out. Ended up depth in the NFL, got cut. Played in the XFL, was pretty decent for the Tampa Bay Vipers. Gets picked up by the USFL. And then I guess the way it went down, and I haven't seen anything recanting this from either side, is the hotel cafeteria was serving, or person serving their meals or whatever, was serving chicken salad. He said he wanted pizza. The hotel worker said, I can't do that, and asked if that was going to be a problem. And Davion Smith said yes, and then walked away because the man just wanted some pizza.
Let's give the man some pizza.
And then he was cut, and it was shown on their weekly TV show, him being cut, because he was apparently disrespectful. Now, you also see in that film clip him trying to explain his side, and the coach basically saying, I don't care. So he's never gotten his side of the story at all.
Right,
they just
out
and cut him. And then the team came out and said he was released because he violated 3 team rules. And he later apologized to the coach and, basically asked if they would take him back, which seems like a really weird thing to leak, because that's like, tune in next week on our bullshit TV show to find out if they take Davion Smith back or not. And it's a whole goddamn political nightmare for the USFL. It's a terrible look on them for any player that wants to go there. Like, you're treating them like they're prisoners almost.
They're just babies. Like, these are men. Get out of here.
Grown man. If he wants to eat some fucking pizza, let him eat some fucking pizza.
Yeah,
but it's not his turn for the pizza party, man. He's got to wait his turn.
Like, he didn't. From the sounds of that story, he didn't do anything terrible. He said yes, and he walked away.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible to me. What are you talking about?
Who the hell ratted this guy out?
So then he got real pissed off, and not really pissed off, just show me the proof. I have text messages, but show me the proof. He's like, I got text messages. Show me the proof. Tell me what rules I broke, because that was never communicated with me. And then people were ripping the league because the statement from the Maulers was, we have hundreds of hours of footage from following people around, but apparently you don't have any footage of any incident occurring. You just have footage of him being cut.
So bad.
Yeah.
But even, like, let's say he was disrespectful. Let's just watch that video. And it's still a bad look on the league.
Yeah.
Because the coach had no interest in hearing his side of the story, which means he never even did the due diligence. That means someone just came to him and said, hey, he was disrespectful to this person. And the coach was like, cool, got him.
Yeah, so the statement...
never got the full story. And then walks away, like, as he's talking or trying to talk, he's just like, I'm out. Bye.
Let's see. Per Davion Smith's Twitter, I said nothing disrespectful or did anything disrespectful. I got teammates that were right there. And then there's a statement from the Maulers which says, on the first episode of United by Football, the weekly USFL All-Access docu-series on Fox. So they start off with, watch our docu-series.
No.
Davion Smith was shown on camera being cut from our team by Coach Kirby Wilson. The show captures hundreds of hours of film with the intent of providing transparency to fans. No capture of him violating team rules. But unfortunately, much of the context is left out in this moment. Smith has violated 3 team rules in a 24-hour span, and in this particular incident, disrespected a cafeteria worker, which wasn't captured on camera. Hundreds of hours of footage, but we didn't capture that one or any of the other 2 on camera. Smith has subsequently reached out directly to Coach Wilson to apologize and asked to be reinstated to the Maulers roster. Does that not read like, tune in next week to check out our docu-series on Fox? Are you hyping a show or are you releasing a PR statement?
One, did anyone even know they had a show before this?
No clue.
They do now.
Yeah,
that's
they're doing their job, I guess. Yeah.
And for the producer's standpoint, they are crushing it. But from a league standpoint, when you're trying to start a new league, man, you can't have something like this.
Davion Smith, because nobody's going to come there now. You're going to cut people. You're going to have, if you survive this year, you're going to have competition in spring football from the XFL, who already has partnerships with the NFL lined up. Who's, I guarantee you, not going to do this shit. So now you got a league that's set to launch next year. You're going to be competing with for talent, And if you got one side over here that's cutting people because they want pizza instead of chicken salad, and you got another one over here that's not cutting people because they want pizza instead of chicken salad, hey, guess what? You're no longer scraping the NFL's scraps. You're scraping the NFL's and the XFL scraps. And what the hell's your product going to look like then? It's a terribly short-sighted move on their part. And then, to be straight contradicting Smith, like, players aren't going to go deal with that bullshit. They really just put out a lie. Y'all should be ashamed of y'all selves. See, now you're playing with my character and who I am as a man. Show me the 3-team rules I broke, please. If I send these screenshots from our exact conversation, who's the one lying?
Yep.
So he was never made aware of any violations. It's a terrible look on the USFL.
Yeah. And these are like supposedly coaches with experience and yada yada. Like,
yeah, he was a
you
running
can only
back
imagine
coach.
what, like, if that's the USFL experience, right, with a coach that people respected in Kirby Smart. Can you just imagine what Urban Meyer was like?
Oh my God, right?
God, right.
Or what some of these college kids have to go through with the coaches they get, like, it's insane.
It's bad.
All right, guys. Let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes of these episodes. I don't think I missed anything big in the news, so let's go ahead and let's talk some
wide receivers, shall we? Wait, hold on. I'm bringing back some old school stuff for this, though.
Ooh, fancy.
I meant to give Miguel a guest intro, too. Oh, well.
Wide receivers.
Because I love me some me. I love me some me. I can't stand myself.
That's so old.
You can tell how
that's
old
like
that
year
is.
2. It's got to be year 2.
It might be year 1. Just
That might be
because of
year
the
1.
Terrible quality. You can tell how old that is.
But I miss the old drops every now and then. They're
That's why I
fun.
bring them back only every now and again.
Only when we have a new guest on,
Not even. Only when.
special. I know.
I felt like our longest running yearly episodic guest. All right.
He deserves it.
As we did with the last show, we're going to look at FF Face Off and the rookie drafts they've been running. So they actually show you basically what they kind of show you. 45, 46 different rookie drafts have been done. This is a combination of their ADP. So we're going to work off of that. So I'll toss the player out, where they're being drafted at there. And then we can kind of go, is that where we have them ranked? Do we agree? Do we disagree? What do we like? What don't we like? Just kind of discuss the prospect. We don't really put a huge focus on rankings until after the draft, just because Draft Capital is going to tell us a bit and help solidify all that. So, per this, average pick of 2.46, the number one wide receiver off the board right now is Treylon Burks.
Still. Interesting.
Yep, he's a little over a full pick higher than Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I expect that to change once the draft happens. Even though I think we kind of have an idea from draft range, but I feel like it's not cool to still have Treylon Burks as your number one receiver. I feel like it's either Drake London or Garrett Wilson, and then our boy Brad's got George Pickens, but I feel like it's uncool to still have Burks as the number one guy. I mean, I get why, with his, I won't say uninspiring, but with kind of his what should have been a high profile combine performance comes out kind of lackluster. And then there's been reports of, I think you posted it, Miguel, reports of him coming in a bit overweight, which raises a lot of concerns because all I'm seeing right now is just shades of N'Keal Harry, and they have very similar athletic profile, production profiles, similar-esque, but it's the between the ears is what made us miss on Harry, and
right, because it came out after the fact that Harry was, during the pre-com or the pre-draft process, as he's leading up to the combine, all that. He was, every day after doing all the workouts and working with the trainers, he'd go out and party, and wasn't taking it all that seriously. And so then he gets sent to the strictest football team of all, where work ethic is everything, and he flounders. So
shocking.
shocking. Like shocking that those two things didn't work out, right? So, as I tweeted out, it's the red flags that start coming up around however you want to call it. Work ethic is just the easiest way I think I can bucket that. That becomes really big for me because it's the one thing none of us can measure. None of us know.
Mm-hmm.
All we have is what is, put out there and what we hear. And you have to take it somewhat seriously because it's not like it's said about every prospect, right? It's like one prospect will get called out and be like, hey, like this guy right here maybe isn't taking things as seriously as he should. And it almost always seems to work out. And you pair that with the lackluster combine, right? When you expect a guy to come in and dominate the combine, he wasn't supposed to be like Julio Jones or anything, but he was supposed to be pretty damn good. He was supposed to put up numbers that made you go, oh, dang, like that's amazing for a guy that size. And then he didn't.
He ticked boxes, but he didn't
blow
you away with it.
But he didn't blow you away with it. And that's fine if you didn't come in with the expectation that he was going to blow you away with it, right?
Right.
And then that reminds me a lot of, the most recent prospect that we had that came in with the same expectations and floundered at the combine was Jalen Reagor.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Like everyone thought he was going to run a 4.3. Nope. And that's what we thought with Traylon Burks. He's going to run, I think everyone was thinking like a low 4.4.
I saw sub 4.4 just based on the film grinders and the ones that, there's some sites that like will track his in game speed. People were expecting.
So from I would consider those two things, even though the second one definitely sounds very, very much on the field, but it's more of like kind of the off field things you can't measure. None of us on Twitter know. Or if anyone tries to pretend that they know, like they just don't. But when you start kind of seeing these pieces connect, right? Like there was one instance, now you're getting another instance. It's hard to ignore that.
Yeah.
It's getting really hard to ignore. And so, and leading up to it, even before we got into January, it was, hey, the NFL has concerns about his playing weight. And I'm like, okay, like concerns about his playing weight is one thing. Concerns about his weight as he's training for the NFL draft, like that means he's not taking it seriously. That's getting the drumbeat's growing, right? Like there's clearly smoke there. The question is how big is that fire? Is it gigantic or is it not that bad? And we're overblowing this, and he can overcome it. So yeah, it's something people really need to start baking into how they view Traylon Burks, and I don't know how many people really are doing that.
We're going to get my first somewhat hot take of the show. Traylon Burks is tier 2 for me. He's not even in tier 1.
That's not a hot take anymore. Yeah. I've seen enough people move him out of there.
Don't see him projecting as an alpha. There's some things that I saw on his film. I'll leave the statistical stuff to you two. I did the statistical work. I know he ticks the boxes, but as the only somewhat hybrid film guy on this show, I feel like that's the perspective I need to be providing. So, he does have a big body. He does have the ability. His hand rating was weird because he was like really good on things that are outside of his frame, but not so good with defenders playing through his frame and things that are like thrown to his chest when he's draped and protected. So basically when he can't use his length in contested catch situations, kind of works against him. He did get used multiple different ways a la Deebo Samuel. The long speed showed up on film, as did some of the yak ability, but nuances that didn't rely on physical traits give me some concern for longevity, and they always have. I think of, Des Bryant really tapering off once he lost a step versus having another 4 or 5 years because he couldn't adjust his game to not rely strictly on physicality. Not a ton of refinement to his game, from positioning or a route tree perspective. So I have a hard time seeing him as a true alpha, and that's not to say he's not going to be NFL productive. That's why he's in tier 2. I think that the multiple ways he was used, the fact that he does have some Deebo Samuel qualities, and we're in a copycat league. We've seen guys like Allen Robinson have solid years that struggle with separation. We've seen time and time again, guys that can win in different ways, I guess, be able to succeed at NFL level, but I don't see him ticking that elite alpha type level of play. So he's down in tier 2 for me. He's not even sniffing wide receiver 1. He's not sniffing anything for me until wide receiver. So that tier starts at 4 and goes down to 7. So there's like a 4-spot range I have him at as far as, wide receiver rankings.
Right. I would agree with a lot of that. But I will preface with this, that as we all know, we've been on here for the entire offseason. There's a tremendous lack of consensus, or at least there was. I don't know if it's tightening up at this point, but there has been. And to that, I'll say, I'm not sure if there is a tier, like a truly elite wide receiver in this class.
Right.
So when we say that like Traylon Burks is like tier 2, like they might all actually be tier 2, to be honest.
Right.
Like that wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being like how all their careers play out. Like there's not going to be a Jamar Chase, but like a Odell Beckham or something out of this class. I just don't see that happening. But something that you just said that caught my attention is that he's raw and needs refinement. And well, how do you get from being raw to being refined? Well, got to work your ass off.
Yep, exactly.
Well, absolutely.
Again, same thing with Nikhil Harry.
If that isn't there, like we don't know, right? We're just hearing it, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. But if that ends up being the case, well, dang, that's just another hurdle he's got to overcome, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But
landing spot's going to be key for him too.
What I love about Burks is like I think ball in his hands, he's probably the most impressive receiver out of anyone on here. Just he's 6'2", he's 225, he's running over 22 miles an hour. Like I get why people get excited when they see that, and they're like, it's rare, right? To see someone do what he's doing, pulling away from Alabama players like with ease. So I get why people get excited about that. It's just, there's still, if that's all you view, I get why he's your wide receiver 1, and I'm not going to argue with you on that. But if you have to include everything else that you're hearing, which I think you should, it gets harder and harder to put him there.
And that's just been the issue with the class in itself. When we talk about, higher end and like the depth of this wide receiver class, I think is very strong. I don't think any team should trade up for a receiver in the actual draft. I don't think any team should take a receiver in the top 15. I think it'd be a massive mistake just given the massive depth of the position, where we can look at, second round picks like Christian Watson and George Pickens, who could be the number 1 receiver in this class. Yeah. Like there's paths to get there.
I'm not going to be surprised if it ends up being a wide receiver that most people aren't super high on at the moment. Like maybe they like, but it isn't obviously whoever's the number 1 right now. I guess we're talking Burks and Wilson.
It's going to be David Bell.
Like it could. I would not. I'd be like, yeah, that probably makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked.
I would be shocked because I'm not a David Bell fan.
I'm not either. I've got him last out of players that I've watched.
I would be like, oh, okay, yeah.
It hurts. I loved him so much. But again, that's the Devy part of it all. It's where you fall in with prospects that break out early that just hasn't really seemed to do much more. But we'll talk about him potentially some later on in the show. But yeah,
we will.
Burks is tough. Again, this is what makes having the 103 and 104, in your super or in your drafts much more difficult to stomach, because you have to pick the first one out of here. So you better fucking hope you can scout properly and be right, because I think we're gonna see a guy. I think the best receiver in this class could come from the second round in both real life draft and in your rookie mocks or in your rookie drafts.
Yeah,
it's out of most draft classes, that's usually not the case. Out of this one, of all draft classes we've covered so far, it'd be like I've been around the block enough to go, yeah, this is the one I would push my chips on, that it's going to come from.
It's like 2014-esque, but without like the Sammy Watkins in there, or like even like a Mike Evans. Like it feels like 14, where the depth is incredible and maybe a lot of them hit. It's wonky.
All right, let's get on to the next guy. So second wide receiver off the board, I mentioned him earlier, is going pick 372, so between pick 3 and 4. That is going to be Garrett Wilson. And for me, I've got Garrett Wilson at the top right now, and the separator between him and Drake London is that Drake London's a black box prospect. You don't have athletic measurables numbers. Yeah, yep. You don't have any numbers on Drake London. And while, the film is good and the productivity is good, give me the guy who tested, who had the productivity, who doesn't. There's actually two guys like this that are both in my top tier, and they're from the same school. But that doesn't, really profile with any holes, at least in the pre-work process that I do, which is productivity for your career, productivity for the season, and what are your combine numbers. So, Garrett Wilson's a guy that when I watched him, I thought he was as quick as he was fast, which is not a bad thing because he's pretty freaking fast too. He was a good enough route runner. He didn't struggle to separate. Quickness really helps him out there. He generally caught what he should catch. I mean, he's not a spectacular catch guy. He's fast. Other than that, you don't really have, the flashy, oh my God plays. So I really liked Garrett Wilson. Contested balls, just some of what I didn't like. He separates well, so there wasn't a lot to see in the way of contested balls into how he played that, because he separated well, and there's also an argument to be made that, well, it's not much of an argument, actually. Wasn't the top wide receiver at Ohio State.
No, not this year.
No, and he may not have been some could argue, and it's close, he may not have even been the second best. I think he was, but, Olave is no slouch himself either. So, I think that Smith and Jigba, I think, was getting probably insane. The majority of those contested balls. So he didn't stand out on his own team, not super physical. He also did this really annoying thing on run plays where he's a tick late to react when compared to pass plays, which is something I noticed watching. On run plays, he was always just kind of a tick later to get off the line than he was on pass plays and to get to his blocking assignment, which is kind of a tell. It was annoying. I don't know if that plays at the NFL level, but I made note of it because it annoyed me. But, overall, he's got game-breaking ability. He's quick. He's shifty. He's good with the ball in his hands. He does have a solid release. The route running was good enough. He may, and this goes back to the fact that there's a lot of depth and not an elite. He's another guy I look at and say, all right, yeah, he might be a better 2 than he is a 1. He might be somebody that plays better with, either in a 1B role or with somebody else there, because he's not the most physical, contested catch-winning guy, and with top coverage in the NFL, I don't know if some of what he has plays. But he's got big upside, and again, the reason that he's in the top tier for me, and currently at 1 pre-draft, even though pre-draft rankings are like the points and prices right, they mean nothing. I think that the upside definitely plays, and he's a guy that I look at and I'm like, okay, he's probably not going to bust, right? He may end up being more of a field stretcher. He may be a 2. He may end up having depending on where he goes, he may end up being, having great volume his first year and then get Jalen Waddle the second year. I'm still okay with that because he's a productive piece. And I don't see a lot of the bottom dropping out of this with Wilson.
I love his floor. I agree. He doesn't project to be an alpha just given he's slightly undersized. Like, he's Jerry Jeudy, he's Calvin Ridley, where on the right offense with the right scheme, with the right volume, he could be Stephon Diggs. 20 pounds lighter Stephon Diggs, 15 pounds lighter Stephon Diggs. And maybe with the NFL turning into more of these high floor guys, these route running savants and separators, as more quarterbacks are less aggressive and more methodical with their choices, maybe these guys will eventually become that. Guys like Deontay Johnson. I think that's where Garrett Wilson lands. It's just, again, given the uncertainty with London and Burks, who have probably the highest ceiling in the class, Wilson is the one where if he lands where, like, I'm not even that concerned about DC at this point. It's all about landing spot with these guys because they're all going to go within 20 picks of each other, 15, 20 to 30 picks of each other. It's where does he land? Does he go to Green Bay? Does he fall that far to go to Green Bay? Does he go to the Chargers, or does he land into a potential landmine with like the Falcons or the Jets where, volume's a concern and, and positive QB play is a concern. I think there's a lot that can go wrong. I don't see him falling very far given his landing spot just because of who he is as a player. It's more so as, if he's, where does he actually start off with in that landing spot and can he get to a popular one or a high volume one? Because the top of the draft's concerning, and he's arguably been outside of Drake London has been the top 2 receivers taken.
Yeah.
I think you guys made a lot of good points. I was actually thinking about this earlier, where Garrett Wilson, I'm like, who does the keep remind me of right now? Like I'm getting the vibe, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And Jerry Jeudy was like, what the light bulb turned on. I'm like, kind of that overhyped, because I'm not really in on Wilson.
That's a hot take, though.
I was never really in on him to begin with. I tried. I was hoping that throughout the process I would fall more in love, and it's like it almost just kept getting further and further away from me.
He's low on your list too. He's not even in your top 4 tiers.
He's not in the pre-draft right now.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not in the pre-draft article that I dropped today, and that's only because I went down to tier 4 because he's in tier 5 at the moment, and he's at the bottom of that too. So now, he's going to rise up because he's going to get the capital, so I would expect him to be like tier 4, 3, something like that by the time it's all said and done. But the fact that he's not in there right now, I think, is important because that's, I think, one of the, I drop the pre-draft every year. Not because it's the most like accurate or actionable, but because there's a few things you can really take away from it, right? It's not really about who's in that list for me. It's about number 1, who's at the top, and then number 2, who's missing, right? And right now Garrett Wilson is missing from that list, and so to me that's an instant red flag. Like, okay, what's going to prop you up is draft capital. Like, this is what we're going to bet on. Like, your draft capital should match your talent. And this is one of those situations where it's not going to match that. And so as we go through Wilson, like, what really always stood out to me is that he was never the guy. And you guys mentioned that yourselves. At best, he was the second best receiver. At worst, he was the third. And to me, that, going back to Alabama, that draws, he's a poor man's Jerry Jeudy, but in the Henry Ruggs role. Where
that's a good point. I like that.
Like his body type, you could easily see like, oh yeah, he looks exactly like Jerry Jeudy, right? His profile, everything. But he was the guy who had to go up against cornerback 3. Olave was out there doing the work for most of the time that they were in Ohio State, and then I'm going to butcher the new kid's name, Jackson something
Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. I mean, that dude just came on and destroyed them both.
He did.
He's your dynasty. He's your Debbie 1, and he's the odds-on favorite to be the first receiver taken next year.
He and CJ Stroud had me drooling.
The next David Bell.
Don't come on, man. This will Rondale Moore to ruin him.
I'm just, Debbie's always such a crapshoot.
It really is.
No one take that seriously. But it's, so you want me to buy like Jerry Jeudy, who is supposed to be the best at what he was, still hasn't really hit in the NFL. And now I've got bargain bin Jerry Jeudy, who was really more used as Henry Ruggs in terms of being the third banana. And I don't know. I have a hard time buying into that. And the fact that now, like, that was just my personal process. And now seeing the model kind of confirming that for me, I just can't take Garrett Wilson that high. He's just not for me. He's not a receiver I'm going to take. I don't think he's an alpha. If he goes to somewhere like Atlanta, he's going to be the number one wide receiver drafted. And I get why, because people are going to trace draft capital and vacated targets for a guy who's never proven that he could be the one to lead the team. That's a huge risk.
That's a good point. I mean, between him and Olave, we're always a 2 or 3. I mean, it's the same vein when we talk about Jameson Williams. When we get to him too, it's going to be a lot of the same conversations. Again, this just speaks to the volumes of, if you can't get a top 2, top 3 pick in your rookie drafts, trade back, because it's a lot of these. It's a lot of good to really good profiles that each and every prospect here has a hole to poke into.
Yeah.
That's a potential red flag.
Yeah, and the other thing is I'm getting bigger into yak wide receivers, and from what I've heard from people who watch film, and Chris, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he's not that. He tends to catch and fall.
Not. If he's not behind the defense when he catches it, then yeah. I mean, he's not the worst at it. I mean, he does have a little bit of shiftiness, but you're not getting A.J. Brown here either. So,
no.
So, like, for all of those reasons is why I'm personally out, and then seeing, PSI kind of confirm that for me. That's where I'm at with it.
So the next guy off the board is the guy that I want to have ahead of Garrett Wilson, and honestly, as long as landing spot and draft capital back it up, he will be post-draft. It's just the black box thing that kept him just a tick behind him, even though they're in the same tier. That's Drake London going at between the 4th and the 5th pick per FF Faceoff's rookie ADP. And Dan, I don't think you've kicked one off yet, so why don't you go ahead and let us know why you love Drake London? Because I know that at least both of us big on Drake London.
Insane upside. He has one of the highest breakout ratings you could find. He broke out at 18.1. Obviously, freshman year breakouts are important, just for the historical hit rates, kind of get an idea of where these guys could be at the next level. Dominated with already receiver. He was able to produce with already receivers within his own offense that have gone on to be successful in the NFL. If it wasn't for the late season injury, I think he'd be higher up there. And of course, if it wasn't for the why can't I run my 40 time ever with so many different things happenings. And then that's what's keeping him from being up there, is we don't know his athletic profile. And I am firmly set on the fact is the right person in his ear is telling him not to do. This year's Corey Davis, where every box is checked that you want it to be checked besides his athletic profile. And at least this time, he's in a Power 5 school. He's Power 5 Corey Davis. He's Pac-12. He's USC Corey Davis. And that standpoint, film grinders will oohs and ahs about its contested catchability. They will ooh and ah at anybody that says that he can't separate because he's so good out of his breaks and stuff like that. In the minimal film I've watched, that was relatively true. But these contested catch guys also do give me concern, because we've seen the league shift from those players and them not being able to command targets. Also, his most popular landing spot right now is the Jets. And while it's fantastic that the team wants to surround Zach Wilson with all this talent, they're not a high prolific passing offense. So you already have a suffocation of targets there that's only going to be filled to if you keep adding in talent, and especially if Wilson can't take the next step. And there were some smaller rumors that if the Jets don't take him at 10, that he could free fall, to the 20s, which may actually be a better outcome for him, because I would love to see him paired with an aggressive quarterback like a Rodgers, a Mahomes, a Herbert, a Josh Allen, someone like that, where at the top of these drafts, it's a bunch of rookies that haven't proved shit. And London may need more of that type of aggression to be able to hit at this next level. I still like him as a prospect, but again, red flag without those athletic numbers.
I'm less concerned about the athletic numbers. The question I ask myself at the end of the day, and I'll just pose it to you guys. Chris, you watch the film, so maybe I'll just pose it to you. When you watch him, is he athletic enough to be in the NFL?
I think he's athletic enough to be in the NFL, and I think he has the traits that will take him above and beyond that. So,
that's all that really matters, because as we know, the combine metrics, like, they're not predictive at all for future success for a variety of reasons. But all that really matters, I factor that in the model, but it's very little. Because of that, like, there's such a wide range, and especially now the NFL is really shifting in what they really value in a wide receiver, right? Getting away from the big guys, going away.
And maybe he goes big slot and becomes Cooper Kupp.
Like we're going more under the under 200 guys. It's getting really interesting now, in terms of how we have to look at historically for combine stuff. But anyways, when I get a guy that I would have loved to get anything from Drake London, even a broad jump or a vert, I would have been thrilled.
It was something, man. God damn it.
Yeah, just one thing, something to hang my hat on. But at the end of the day, if I think he's competent enough, the way the model looks at it, if he doesn't do any of those things, they just put him on the model just puts it on par as if he was able to complete it all. Because again, it's going to change the score so little that it doesn't even matter all that much. It's fair. Just a tiny amount. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he is good enough. And so even with that, he's still, right now in, he's a tier 2 guy.
Yeah,
I think is where I have him right now.
Right below. He's the bottom of tier 2. I have
at the bottom of tier
the page
2.
pulled up.
I see that. And I don't really care all that much where he's ranked in there, but yes, he's at the bottom at the moment. And I have no doubt that I think by the time it's all said and done, I think he's going to be at the top, if not near the top, if not the guy of this class, given where draft capital could probably launch him. So I understand why the analytics community, kind of going back to the top of the show where you're saying all the people that are coming out with models now for wide receivers. I see it, right? I get why the analytics community loves Drake London and has him as their number one guy. I just don't think it's by a country mile.
No.
I think it's
none of these guys are country mile. Anybody,
no.
they're all clumped together, in my opinion.
I understand what they're looking at, and I get it, and I agree with that. Yes, he's probably going to check out as the best guy, but it's not like Jamar Chase and the next guy down like we had last year. It's just not. It's razor thin. So if you do like someone a little bit better than Drake London, don't let a model necessarily be the thing to hold you back. Don't be so dogmatic about it. I don't think this is the class where you plant your flag and don't budge.
Yeah. Productivity wise, he was not at the top, and film grade wise, all things I roll in, he was at the top, but to your point, it was not by a ton.
Right.
I will say this for Drake London, though. There are things I saw out of him that I looked and said, this guy's going to be an alpha because he's a bulldog after the catch. He doesn't go down on the first hit. He has a true just my ball attitude. If it's a contested catch, you are not getting that ball. Drake London is getting that ball, and then you're not going to tackle him on the first hit, so you better have some friends coming. He is an absolute just tank of a human being. The acceleration after the catch was pretty good. He did have the ability to box out defenders, which is good. When you have a big frame, you should be able to. But, for whatever reason, a lot of these big frame guys get caught outside position or to a point where corners can jump the routes or get in front of them, and they got to go over the top versus just let me put my big ass frame in front of you. Good luck getting through me or around me. Drake London does that well. Works well vertical too. So, he's not a speed guy. It's about the only knock I have on him. And that's not really a knock. It's just, that's not the type of player he is. This is a guy that's going to go win contested balls, and he's going to have that yak ability that's becoming more and more prominent in the NFL.
You're not going to bring him down on the first hit. He's definitely athletic enough, and he's got some things that show up in his film that make you say, yeah, if there's going to be a guy in this class that comes out as a true alpha, an unquestioned alpha on their team, it's Drake London.
You'll be just 21 too when the season starts, like a very fresh 21 too. So
yeah,
very young, a lot of growth to grow into. So
right, yeah, he's got a long runway to grow into the player that we all hope he can become.
And I may joke about the Jets as a spot that may suck, but again, with a guy like him, with him so much with that age there, that's in the right wheelhouse for us, and just given his profile, I mean he's probably going to end up being my one. I'm not entirely sure. Again, all my guys are all clumped together. It's more. I think landing spot's going to really just shake up the tier more so than draft capital.
Here's a question for you, and I don't want to derail this conversation too much, but assume Drake London goes to the New York Jets. More London. Who do you take
for redraft or just dynasty?
Dynasty.
I go with London.
It's London for me. Yeah.
It's his ups. I love more, and I think those two would pair tremendously together.
I think they pair really well.
Oh, it'd be perfect.
It would be.
And
I think
it'd
Corey
be fantastic.
Davis is the other outside guy, or you put London as a big slot, like you said. I mean, 6'4".
Oh my God,
he can play.
Marquise Colson's his best comparable on player profile.
Right, you put him as a big slot and let Moore and Davis play outside. That's a hell of a. That's some weaponry for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I'm kind of salivating at the thought of Drake London big slot. Like it won't happen. It'd be weird, but
my Zach Wilson teams will be thrilled.
I'll enough have a lot of Zach Wilson shares for a guy who was.
I was watching some of these receivers and just thinking I need more dynasty league because I want shares of the leagues.
I want all of them.
Well, and I've also lost like 3 dynasty leagues over the last 2 years, so I want to add at least one this year.
Do another best ball. Just start a best ball dynasty.
No,
I'll join.
What I'm really considering doing is what somebody threw out as an idea a bit ago, and that's where rather than rookie draft, you do random roster selection. Essentially, and then it's like everybody's getting an orphan team, basically, and go.
That'd be fun. Just like auto draft the draft, and then you just...
No, I think I would do Wheel of Names, and we'd just drink and do a Wheel of Fortune episode. And do it that way. Like, and rather than go round 1, round 2, round 3, it's like, all right, quarterbacks, spin the wheel.
That'd be fun. That'd be interesting.
What you want your roster construction to look like, right? Here's what type of league it is. Okay, what do you want your roster construction to look like? And then we'll just go and fill it out position by position. And I've had some thoughts about, you tier it off based off ADP. So, like, the top 12 quarterbacks are there together. So, you kind of start off with a good amount of balance and then see where people go from there.
I like it.
Anyway. Anything else on London before we move on to Jameson Williams?
I'm good.
All right, cool. On to Jameson Williams. He of the torn ACL, I believe.
Yes.
So he, before the injury, I think was being considered by a lot as a top end pick. To me, this is a speed guy for the most part. I mean, he does show some ability to vary his routes and his footwork. His hands are solid, but I mean, his best asset is speed. He's more fast than quick, so in traffic he doesn't necessarily work that well. Not a ton of shiftiness. Doesn't do a lot in short yardage situations. So, this is another guy that I look at and say, if him and Garrett Wilson end up the same, I'm not surprised. But this is another guy I look at and I just kind of see, and I've seen this at Alabama before too. This is another guy I look at though, and I'm just like, okay, it's kind of more of a one-trick pony, right? This guy's fast, and he can work a little bit over the middle, but he's not going to be a big yak guy. So this is a guy that you just want him working downfield, and unfortunately, the ceiling of a guy that's just working downfield is a lot of boom bust, and it's Will Fuller / Deshaun Jackson in his prime.
You say Will Fuller?
I did say Will Fuller.
It's Will Fuller. His best comparables are pretty rough, but
not as rough as somebody else we'll get to later.
No, I mean it's this guy. I see Dante Pettis on there, and
well, yes, I did see
and
that.
Dami Brown and Cedric Wilson.
PSI.
Yeah, but I just don't get my rocks off the Alabama receivers anymore, especially in these clumps where it's like they're going to get overhyped, they're going to get overdrafted, and this is Henry Ruggs 2.0, maybe a little more polished Henry Ruggs.
It's Henry Ruggs that doesn't kill people, I hope.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what everyone hopes, and ADC. I've seen rumors that Kansas City may be moving up to get him, which would be one of the dumbest moves in the entire draft. And
I don't think they should move up to get him if they can get him where they're currently at. I love that fit.
Which I mean, maybe, but he won't. I mean, we can just safely assume that he'll go to it. I've seen a lot of him falling to the Saints or the Eagles, which would just immediately get me off both of them.
Be a giant mistake for the Eagles. The Saints, I think, if Michael Thomas is back, I could see that being. I could see that being an okay fit.
You got Jameis Winston throwing him bombs or interceptions. But,
Jameis has got the arm for it.
He's not going to be gun shy, that's for sure.
Yeah, for maybe a year. I mean, it's hard to project to his quarterback throwing him the football after this year. And that Saints offense is going to be woof. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, we've seen speed guys hit, but we've seen the NFL tell us how they view speed guys and how teams continue to misuse them constantly. So, I mean, it might be in Williams' a favor that he didn't test and run a sub 4.3, because then he would just become the next Ruggs and John Ross and just be misused and thrown out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really entered this process thinking that Jameson Williams was going to be a prospect that I wouldn't like, that the model wouldn't like, but this is why I do it, because what I think and what the model thinks are two different things. And the model actually did like him, and I was actually growing to like him over time. I actually do like Jameson Williams. I understand that he is is he an elite wide receiver one? Ooh,
probably not.
Probably not. Right. The safer bet is on not than is. But could he, if he turned into Will Fuller, which is who I comped him to as well here in the pre-draft report that came out today.
Yep. I didn't steal that, but I just looked at it and saw it.
No. It's fine.
Yeah.
It was just good to hear that I wasn't too far off. But I mean, when I look at it, I look at just who their kind of closest comp is within the model. Yeah. I think we'd all be very happy with that.
I think we would too, especially if
we'd be thrilled.
Especially if he can be a little more healthy. I mean,
yeah, a little more healthy Will Fuller is really nice.
Yes.
So, and obviously, as we talk about James Williams, who has a torn ACL, but I like Williams. I actually do like Williams, and I think he'd be a great pick. I'm not at all scared about the torn ACL. A lot of the guys tear their ACLs, come back and be fine. So yeah, really excited for this kid. Obviously, I do think that Alabama receivers do get far too much credit, but Jameson Williams did this on a team where he wasn't competing with Devontae Smith, and he wasn't competing with Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, who's
third round from the looks of it at best,
right? Not. So you got to give him credit there. I didn't love the fact, I entered thinking I wasn't going to love the fact that he was a 1-year wonder. But I think I'm starting to realize that maybe that doesn't matter so much. So it just matters that it happens. So
it's not like he, moved from a Big Ten school to a G5 school. He went from Ohio State to Bama.
Right.
Arguably, it's yes, there's a transfer there, but
right, there's a transfer there. But the other thing, and I think I may have tweeted this out. Maybe I was talking with a friend. I don't remember anymore. But does Ohio State have a history of using the proper wide receiver?
No.
Which probably runs counter to my Garrett Wilson thing earlier. Right? Like you can look
that
at
feels that feels a bit more obvious.
It does
this time around.
But they just don't. I don't think they've ever really evaluated their personnel that well. And Jameson Williams could be the next guy where it was like, oh, we totally screwed this up and he should have been playing and we just didn't play him. And maybe it was because he ordered pizza one day when he should have ordered chicken salad, and the coach was like, "Get out! You're never seeing the field." Yeah. We don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out there. But it clearly worked out at Alabama, and if it can work out there,
you know, it didn't work out there for Joe Burrow either, but it worked out at LSU. So
right, I mean, Ohio State has a history of not playing the right people,
right? And Joe Burrow's been pretty okay so far.
He's been pretty good at football.
It's been
they're able to have a successful program, but they don't play the best NFL future NFL stars.
No, they don't. All right, anything else on Williams? I think that pretty well covers it. I mean,
yeah,
not a lot of dissension there. All right, next up, Chris Olave, going just a tick, basically 0.2 of a pick behind Williams. So a lot of people valuing Olave and Williams very similar to each other, which I think is fair. Miguel, why don't you go ahead and start with Olave? I see he's in tier 4 for you. You got a Dante Pettis comparison on him.
Yeah, he was someone on Reddit was saying I basically chose violence today for comparing him to Pettis, and it's like people liked Pettis.
I did like Pettis.
This was as prospects, right? Like this isn't just what happened in the NFL.
It's me. I'm people.
So, I wasn't a big Pettis fan, but I got why the NFL liked him. And I think Olave is better than Pettis. So,
yes, he is.
I think Olave is good. I think he might be the safest floor wide receiver in this class, where I don't think it's going to matter where he goes. He's going to be a solid number 2 to someone else's number 1. If he gets in the right spot, we'll say DK Metcalf's number 1. He can be the Tyler Lockett, and I think that's a good outcome for Olave. Especially, I mean, I gave him a lot of shit for going back to school, and I think he still should have come out because he just got outplayed in his final year. I doubt he couldn't have gone in. Last class was a little more stacked, so maybe he would have gone second round, not first. But
that's probably what happened. It's probably someone told him, "You're not going first round this year. Just try next year."
Yeah, it's the next class isn't so great. That person was right. Who's that guy? So yeah, I think Olave is a fine player. I have no issues with him. I think he's probably going exactly where he should be going.
Mm-hmm. And I really like the Tyler Lockett comparison, or a guy like Doug Baldwin before Lockett really took off. I mean,
right?
Yeah, Olave is a guy that to me projects as is an inside slot, solid route runner, that's got good speed through his breaks, and he's got some burst to him. If you land in a high volume place like Cooper Kupp, then that floor is very, very high, and a guy with burst, reliable hands, and a solid route runner tends to give you some pretty safe pieces. Especially when you're picking rookies. The upside may not be there, and the allure and the intrigue of guys like Traylon Burks or Drake London or even Garrett Wilson and some of these speed guys isn't there. But Olave has just got a very put together, complete game, and showcases really to me as just reliable. So I agree that it's a situation where the floor is high. The upside may be a little bit capped. He doesn't have a boatload of agility or jump ball ability, or at least not that he showed on film. So not a big contested guy, a little bit on the smaller side. So I think he is ultimately going to play inside, but you can see that be productive. You can see that be productive with wide receiver 1 weeks and be a solid wide receiver 2 or 3 for your team. Everybody you draft isn't going to be this elite,
right?
Wide receiver 1 person. So I
think he's the guy who's going to give you consistent, wide receiver 2 weeks with the occasional blow up game, and great.
Most landed spot mock team, Green Bay. I picked 22.
I would love that.
I think that is a dream, absolute dream landing spot for what Rodgers would need. 4-year guy, a lot of experience, productive. He broke out at 19. So
do you think his ADP rises as a result?
He'll be the wide receiver 1, I think. I think whoever lands in Green Bay or KC, and a guy like Olave does have a lot of holes. Besides not being really clear.
Garrett Wilson goes to Atlanta. He goes to Green Bay.
Olave.
I
mean, it still sucks that he's not early declared, so you lose that spot.
I mean,
but yeah,
I would obviously be taking Olave as well. But yeah, it's
and I think that with the Green Bay comparison, you're right, because you think of the guys that have succeeded out of that slot role. Randall Cobb is the immediate one that comes to mind, and done very, very well at that. And there's some synergies there with Olave too. Actually, I want to look at that now. You're gonna have me.
His best comparable is Stephon Diggs. Jerry Judy's obviously a popular one given his size, but yeah, Diggs, Stills, Hamler, Judy, and Ted Ginn. Again, this is all best player comparable on playerprofiler.com. Greatest tool to use. Help you win. We're totally not sponsored by them. We're just going to give them.
We're not. We just use the hell out of them. Yeah. Anyway. Anything else on Olave? We're moving pretty well through this.
Well, it's wonders when, Bourbon's not involved.
That's true. George Pickens. Next guy off the board, that is the wide receiver 6 per rookie ADP, going a little under 2 picks after Williams and Olave. Dan, I hear you bring up Pickens a lot, so let's go ahead and have you start here, and then we can maybe throw a little bit of water on it. It's not going to be a lot of water. It's going to be room temperature water, not cold water. But
I think it all dates back to, to Devi and falling in love with prospects. And, Pickens fits the perfect bill into that. It's a 5-star recruit, number one in his recruiting class. He goes to Georgia and he has a productive freshman season. Given the offense that he's in, Georgia goes through his woes in his sophomore season. He struggles, and then he gets hurt in spring ball, comes back, and you get fun clips of him just, bullying and bruising people. But at 6'3", 200 pounds, he fits the new age size for the NFL. You think of that size, you think of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. George Pickens, who clearly isn't on the Jamar Chase level of prospect, but one of his comparables is Justin Jefferson, and it wonders if he was on a more prolific passing offense, would he have been able to be, to post those insane numbers? And while we don't know that, it's something that I always wondered. But he doesn't have the greatest production comparables, only just a 15% tallest year. That's just 29th percentile. But again, with early breakout, I know he's not going to go round one. I've seen some mocks where maybe he goes to KC at 29 or 30 and as high as the Packers at 28. I've seen a lot of him fall high round 2, high to mid round 2. The Bears, the Packers, if they go double receiver. I will forever love him the same way I love David Bell. I have my expectations just given his history of injury, and kind of now the now off the field issues that are coming up about him.
Yeah. So I think there are 3, and we're going to talk about another one of these guys next. I think he comes up right after, and I'm sure the other one's not too far along after that. But there is what I've called kind of the Devi trio of wide receivers that the community as a whole will prop up more than they probably should. And I've struggled with, if I had to pick one that I thought was going to be like the guy, like who would it be? But that is the trio of Pickens, Ross, and Dotson. Because I don't think any of them are all that special. I think they'll be better NFL wide receivers than they will be fantasy wide receivers at the end of the day, which, great for them. But I think I've crossed Ross off the list, and now just depends on what time of day you catch me. I'm either picking Pickens or Dotson.
Pickens and
Dotson. I would pick Pickens just given the alpha qualities. I like Dotson.
He's got the bigger size. He's got tiny hands, apparently.
I've got Dotson and Pickens back to back, but I almost want to lean Dotson a little bit just because of the skill set and the productivity.
I was first, like, if you asked me a month ago, I was like all in on the Pickens side, and now I've kind of leaned and I'm more in on the Dotson side, and I don't know how much that's just people tweeting that is, subconsciously affecting me.
And
Dotson, I see most mocked to the Packers too. So there's
I've seen a lot of him too.
Everyone falls in love with the 18-year-old breakout age, but
there's more to it.
It doesn't matter that much. Like, it's great that he did it.
I like the freshman year breakout.
But I like the 18-year-old. Yeah, I like the 18-year-old breakouts that like dominate the whole time that they're in the NFL. Not that they did it once and then got hurt and then we're like, eh.
Brad Edwards, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not that impressive at the end of the day. Like, it's great that they did it, but they clearly fell off. And for a variety of reasons. So, like, I don't know. I'm not super high on any of these guys.
Yeah, I've got Pickens.
You missed me with Pickens, and that's fine. If I'm wrong on him, I'm wrong on him.
I see Pickens kind of as like DJ Chark to me, where I'm not surprised if he gives you some solid seasons, and I'm also not surprised if there's just a complete disappearance after a solid season, for example.
And he's he also did make the pre-draft list, which
I know that hurts to see.
As I stated in there, the pre-draft list, one of the important things is it's all about who's not there, right? Because it captures historically a little over 80% of the guys that go on to hit. So now George has to compete with the Hunter Renfros, the ones that we don't expect to hit. That's hard, man. That's hard.
I will say with Pickens,
you're not there. That's a red flag.
The things that I liked were, from a film perspective, is that one, he did show an ability to adjust to the ball well, which you kind of have to do to have any sort of productivity when JT Daniels is throwing you the football. Daniels gave him plenty of opportunities to show that he could adjust to bad throws, and
so bad.
He does. The body control was solid. That goes along with the spectacular catchability. He was able to win deep, and he's got good break to his routes, which did allow him to gain some separation, but ability after the catch wasn't fantastic. He did have some struggles with drops. There wasn't necessarily, I guess, his body control and ability to adjust to bad throws, which ideally you don't have to do, was really the only thing that jumped out to me as like an elite trait. So I just don't see Pickens is one of those guys that might be an alpha on a bad team. I think if he's on a good team, then the best you're hoping for is like a Mike Williams type of wide receiver too, who just disappears sometimes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with that. We're really selling this class, by the way. Every player's like, yeah.
I swear the depth's good, but
the
depth is good. It
just holes. Every prospect's got holes, man. There is no Jamar Chase. I think that hurts.
A guy
after the year after Jamar Chase.
A guy who I think doesn't have. Well, he's got holes too, actually.
This feels like the I think it's the 2015 class. Where it really
not the Amari Cooper. No, was that 16 or 15? I think that was 15.
I think it was 15. I think it was Amari Cooper, and you got Tyler Boyd, and that's it.
And Mike Thomas was the year after. I thought both Mike Thomases were in the same year as Tyler Boyd.
I don't know.
That's 16.
You guys can keep chatting. I'll try to pull.
Yeah, because that was Laquan Treadwell. That was the 15 class. Mike Thomas was a good and bad Mike Thomas was a part of that draft class.
Then was it the 16 class?
16 was...
it was the 16
16
class.
was the Laquan Treadwell.
That was actually the Michael Thomas class.
That was right. All right. I just had them flip-flopped. Yeah.
So you got Boyd and you got Thomas, injured Will Fuller.
Yep.
That's it. That's the list.
Corey Campbell. Oh, man.
That was the Leonte Carew, Corey Coleman...
Oof.
Tajay Sharp,
Josh Doxson,
Quan Treadwell, all that whole class, and
God, they all whiffed. Literally everyone.
Nobody hit.
Every first round prospect. Well, Will Fuller, I guess maybe, but injuries, took that away from him.
Yeah, that's what this class feels like to me.
Not Jackson, but Jahan Dotson, the next guy we're going to talk about, and I think that Dotson's floor is pretty undeniable for me. He was open a lot. Even the ball wasn't going to him. The dude was open all the freaking time. Plus acceleration and up to speed quick. He was agile, cut on a dime, fluid change of direction, some spectacular catchability, a lot of versatility in how he was used. Now, hands left a bit to be desired. He
has some unnecessary jumps when he catches the football. Long speed, he's got quick get up and go, so he's more short burst explosive than he is long distance explosive. Not a good contested ball, guys. This is another guy that's going to win with separation. Could end up sliding into a slot role, but he's a good route runner. Could be a matchup problem in the slot. He has the athleticism, the ability to play outside. I just don't think that's where he's best cast. It's almost kind of like Juju, where you can play him outside, but you're going to be much better running him out of the slot. And you're going to need him in a high-volume offense as well. So you're kind of getting into slot city here. Again, why I like him to the Packers, though, because you've seen that type of where he's mocked to a lot, because you've seen that type of receiver be successful. And this is a guy that is going to win with his route running. He's going to win with his ability to separate. He's not going to beat downfield.
Well, they're also in dire need. I mean, they have Lazard and probably Watkins, and then they don't have a slot guy with Cooper gone and Amari Rodgers, more of a special teams guy. So they're in that dire need of a slot flanker. And Doxson, like Olave, has the speed to play outside, has the experience, and I think Rodgers would like his skill set, given his ability, like Cobb, to be able to work in all three quadrants of the field. It's just, I get another very good number 2, right? Doesn't have the size to probably be a profile that's an alpha top 1 tier receiver, but he fits the mold of today's class. He fits the mold of what's winning in today's NFL, speed and route running. I mean, and the ability to win after the catch. He's just 20 pounds lighter than what we want him to be, and those guys are going to be caps in terms of of his ultra ceiling, but he can definitely be a very productive wide receiver 2 in fantasy, especially if he goes to Green Bay and especially in the early portions of his career.
I think I like the comparison that PSI gives him too, Miguel. I do like the
Darnell Mooney.
Shit, I just lost it. Yeah, the Darnell Mooney comparison. Because Mooney's a guy who I also think projects best as a 2, more field stretcher than inside, but
yeah, a little flip flop there, but yeah, I would agree. I think people are really high on Mooney. I'm very high on Mooney, obviously, from previous years, but I think Mooney needs a true alpha alongside of him to really unlock him, and I think Dotson's just going to be the same way. He's a nice player. I think he's going at 112 right now, right? Is that's what I had in here, but I could be wrong. That may have been updated.
Probably depends on which format.
Well, 112, 12.42 average pick, so 112.21 somewhere in there.
Yeah. So somewhere around then. I guess that's fine. I would put him as a second round pick, but if you're getting him at the end of the first, it's basically a second round pick. I think that makes sense. But like I said with the trio, I guess pick whichever one you think is your favorite and hope for the best. I'm just not gonna lean on the 18-year-old breakout ages and I'll
have them, Miguel. I'll take them all.
Although he didn't break out at 18, but I'm just not going to lean on the Devi hype and hope that and pretend like he's the greatest thing.
I feel like his hype was just in a 3 or 4 game stretch. I think it was the end of 2020 season or something like that. It just felt off.
He's also a little light, 5'11", 178, and I think in prior years that would have been a bigger factor for me. Obviously, the NFL is shifting with what they draft and look for in wide receivers, so I'm less concerned about that these days.
Still a little too light.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's someone, if I can get him, great. If I miss out on him, then I guess I'm drafting Pickens if he's there. Give me whichever one of the 3 is available.
No, he's not my favorite guy that I have in this area. My favorite guy that's in this area he makes an appearance later. Actually, and there's a guy in your tier 1 for your draft that I also really, really like that I may take over John Dodson even. So little.
Oh, there's definitely one.
We're
probably thinking of the same person. There's small school Elijah Moore.
Yeah,
that's what I call him.
Okay.
If we're thinking of the same player.
We might not. I don't think we are. I don't think we are, actually. I think I know who you're thinking of.
Well, small school legend, but there's...
Well, I don't hang out on Twitter, so... So it'll be fun when we get there, I guess.
Let's see when we get there.
But yeah, there's 2 guys that I like more than Dotson that are going later, and maybe 3 because
it's David Bell, isn't it?
Because even I'm about to riff on him in a minute.
I'm the only one that still likes him. Even I'm like, I'm smart about it.
Talk about I think you're talking about I like a lot too. I got a different comparison for him though. All right, David Bell. I'm just going to go ahead and kick this off and end it all in one shot. He's a big body who can position to win contested balls. Other than that, he's slow, he's unathletic, he's sloth-like, he doesn't separate, he has no noticeable explosions or pop, he's slow, defenders play through his body, he runs like he's in quicksand, he's slow. Did I mention that he's slow? My final thoughts on him, I just had the shortest final thoughts write-up I did, and it just says move to tight end.
Oh, he's way too smart for that too. 6'1", 209.
There you go. He's
his saving grace is
nothing.
Slot. That's the saving grace. It's slot.
You have to have agility to be successul in the slot, though.
No, you don't. No, not as much anymore.
As from a combine perspective, like he failed
everything.
Everything. I mean,
he failed everything.
Explosion.
God, it hurts.
The 40-yard dash, the vertical leap, the 20-yard shuttle, and the 3-cone.
This would be like if
failed. And then the one thing that he was decent at was the broad jump. Like, it wasn't great. It was just good enough, barely good enough.
And his pro day 40 was somehow worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is if Drake London tested.
I will say
that's how I feel about him right now.
I think this is a really good example and something I wanted to highlight of, because Peter Howard brought it up the other day. Like, he and I, for whatever reason, I feel like his last few tweets are exactly what I'm thinking as I'm sitting at my desk doing work or whatever. And I'm like, this is like a really important topic that someone should be talking about and that I should be bringing forward from my own work or whatever. And then like Peter Howard will like actually tweet it out, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm fucking thinking. I'm like, he's on it. Like, that's right. And one of the things he mentioned recently is that, you have to understand the weaknesses of your model, right? Because every model is wrong. Like, they're all wrong.
Yeah.
It's just understanding why they're wrong, right? And I think David Bell and Wan'Dale Robinson are like great examples of this. And obviously, there's still a chance like they could completely prove us wrong and they can blow up, and then the model happens to be right. But the way I see it, like, none of these profiles, like when you actually look at the whole picture, you don't see profiles like that hit. You just don't.
You don't.
But the way the model is set up, right? It's just continuing to add it's the sum of multiple parts. But it doesn't look at the whole picture and go, oh, yes, this is good, this is bad. It just goes, oh, yep, it did this well, it did that bad, it did this well, it did that bad, and here's your final score. And so when we look at the entire profile, I understand why the model likes David Bell and Wan'Dale Robinson. I get it. But at the same time, I look at that and go, no.
Yeah.
Like, just no. And that's what people have to understand. Like, that's where you really get the learnings and how you can maximize, using whoever's model you want to use, like, use it, but understand its weaknesses, understand where it can go wrong and where it has historically. And it's the David Bell profiles and the Wan'Dale Robinson or the Greg Dortches or, all of those guys that just don't do anything because at the end of the day, like at all these individual areas, yes, they were really great, but at the end of the day, that whole profile fucking sucks.
I have one hope. His best comparable on playerprofiler.com is Anquan Bolden.
So if it's 20 years ago, David Bell would be good.
What's that?
So if it was 20 years ago, David Bell would be good.
I mean, he was good up until his late 30s.
15 years ago, David Bell would be good.
Oh.
I mean, did Anquan Bolden tank the combine that completely?
Yeah. His athletic profile is actually worse.
Oh, no way.
Slightly worse. And he played outside to start. But out, he also got late day 2. He got late round 2 draft capital, and it was paired with one of the greatest receivers that we've ever had, and Larry Fitzgerald, and then productive in Baltimore in that big slot role. Look, God. David Bell's probably not going to hit. Probably not.
Yeah, it is probably not. Like
he's not going to hit.
Yes,
and there's no way he should be going at the mid of round 2. That is a terrible. A terrible spot for him to be.
I would say this, I'm looking at Anquan Bolden's profile, and holy crap, he was actually worse than David Bell.
Yeah.
But obviously, you can see that could succeed. It's just the law of probabilities, right? Like, how many Anquan Boldens have there been since 2003? There's been one.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like trying to find the next Tyreek Hill. You're not going to find the next Anquan Bolden.
It's just, you're betting on such a small thing.
You're betting on guys like Jarvis Landry hitting.
I get why the model likes him. I totally understand it, and I agree with that. But at the same time, as a rational person, I look at the history of things and go, no.
Nope.
No. I agree with that. Nope.
Can't believe he's going earlier than mid-second. That's a mistake. He's someone I'll take in the 3rd round just because I'm okay with it.
All right. Polarizing, sort of. Christian Watson checks in, is the 9th wide receiver off the board, going average 2.2 to 2.3, somewhere in the high 2nd round. Athletic marvel. Not a lot of productivity, though, at a smaller school. So you look at it and you're like, okay, smaller school prospects, I want him to dominate. On film, he absolutely looks like he dominated. When you look at his overall career metrics and his single season metrics and everything, really he didn't. Like, he was dominating competition, but he wasn't. I can't really explain the productivity not being there, which is my concern with Christian Watson. My biggest concern with Christian Watson.
It's odd because he's going to have to adjust the NFL levels of competition, and he's just this hyper specimen of an athlete. I've seen mocked in round 1.
Yeah.
Like, again, Green Bay, Kansas City, which, again, would be good fits, in terms of what his build looks like. But the guy's going to step onto the field as a 4-year senior and only played against the shittiest of the shit competition. And he's going to have to adjust that and learn to, play press because he's probably going to play on the line. He's going to have to learn how to beat press, at his size. And if he's going to struggle against some of these more physical and aggressive corners, it doesn't matter how fast you are if you're getting knocked off your route, 2 seconds into it. So
yeah,
I like him. I'm just like, I like the draft capital. That's pretty much it.
I like the
obviously.
I like the exciting profile.
Yeah,
because you can envision the upside of like, man, if
he puts it together, guy,
holy hell. So that's really nice, and it's not like he wasn't completely unproductive. He did have a dominator rating of 35%, so like he was good, but he's kind of the opposite David Bell, isn't he? Like David Bell was like ultra productive, but really unathletic.
Yes,
and here we have a really athletic guy, but on film, you're just like, he wasn't really used the way.
Yeah.
So he really is like the antithesis.
He's a small school hyper productive, or small school hyper athletic, just somehow not that productive.
Small school and Jameson Williams. I mean,
and was it the school? Like, was it the offense? Like, I don't know, Chris. Maybe you have got a better insight on that.
Quarterback play was relatively bad, but I mean, he was just used deep a ton, and that was basically it. I mean, but quarterback play definitely didn't help at all.
So his best comparables were just like, hey, let's just go deep and hope we do something.
His best comparables are rough.
Don't spoil that one, because I actually took that as a no, and when you trace it, it's pretty bad.
It's like
it's
I have their data profile popped up, so I popped up their 5 highest for him. God, it's just a.
It's bust.
He might have like the most upside, right? Or at least the most exciting upside, I guess, might be the best way to put it, just because of what he did at the combine. But again, if he's got to be refined, kind of the one sort of red flag for me is that, like, how much time is he going to get to do that? Right, he's going to enter the league at 23, a little over 23 years old. I always say you've got until your age 25 season to put it together. So that's really only going to give him like 2 years before you've got to throw in the towel if he doesn't hit.
I can't wait for him to go to
right. Compared to a Drake London who's entering at 21, has got like 4 whole years to do what he needs to do.
I can't wait for him to land into a team like Atlanta or something, like a bad offense with obviously a glaring hole at wide receiver, Chicago potentially, and
I don't want him in
watch
Chicago.
him get overdrafted. I know. I'm just saying in general, he's going to get overdrafted. Then, like, he's one of those guys where it's like I probably won't have much shares of him, even though I don't hate his profile. It's just I'm scared off by him. The same way I'm almost getting scared off of Burks. I'm scared off of Watson, just given historically what these guys have looked like have produced, and it's not pretty.
Fast and he wins contested, but man, when you look at the comparable players and you see Denzel Mims, Kevin White, and Brashad Perriman, that's
Terrace Marshall and Kevin
Marshall, and Terrace Marshall was in there too.
Devonta Parker, so he's gonna be a 5th-year breakout at 29 years old.
That's
dope.
All sorts of
fucking amazing. Thank you.
Despite how good the athletic profile is, that's a lot of
all
yikes.
Prospects that we were all in on at one point, though, right?
I mean, Marshall, I won't make fun of it too much. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, because I was big on Mims.
Yeah, well, so was I. Brashad Perriman, I liked him. This was before I dove hard, but big, fast,
right.
And he got first-round DC. Like,
right.
What happened?
I think Christian Watson can be really exciting. I hope he puts it together. I love that they used him as in the Deebo Samuel role too. They had him kind of rushing and handing him off and things like that. So, kind of a Swiss Army player at his size too, which I tweeted about earlier when the whole Deebo Samuel thing. He used to be Trey Lance's running mate. Like, it's easy to see. The Niners saw him on tape 2 years ago when they were doing their Trey Lance studies.
Oh my God, he's going to go to them.
It's easy to envision the Niners being in on Watson.
Except he won't be available at the back of the second. I don't think he'll be available.
Unless they trade Deebo Samuel.
Yeah,
that's true.
And
so they're going to take him.
That's the only way.
And is this not kind of what they wanted with, potentially, I don't know, Jalen Hurd, for example?
I mean,
except
if you
he's
can
way
get
more athletic.
if they think they can get similar usage, I'm not going to say production, but similar usage from Watson at a cheaper rate.
I mean, that's ultimately what these teams want. They want to replace the old vet with. They want to be Minnesota. They want to replace Stephon Diggs with Justin Jefferson.
I don't think they want to be Minnesota. I think they want to make that same move.
In terms of that moment, they want to have that type of they want that type of situation to happen.
All right, next guy on the list is Sky Moore. He is going wide receiver 10. Looks like 206, 207 range. Dan, is this who you're talking about when you said small school?
Yeah, small school.
Yeah, this is not who I was talking about. I got a different character on Sky Moore. I got a different comparison for Sky Moore.
Well, I mean, I there's a lot of them. I think he's gonna. I love Sky Moore, so
I do too.
I don't hate Sky Moore at all. I like him a lot.
A ton from the film community. So I'd love to hear your perspective, Chris. But from what I've seen, he's exciting. I comped him to Golden Tate, and
that's
in a class,
two-player profiler. Look at you.
Oh wow!
Yeah, look at you.
Right. So yeah,
look at you, smart guy over there.
If in a class where we aren't sure there are many elite wide receivers, if any, if the best player that comes out of it is Golden Tate 2.0 in terms of like what he ends up doing in the NFL and for fantasy teams, I'd be really excited about that.
I'd be happy.
I'd be thrilled. And you're getting him when? Like, that's how upside down this whole thing.
That's going to change though, because he's going to go high enough for him. I think he's going to.
You don't think that's baked in already? You don't think people are baking in the second?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, that's become a trend now. As people, people analyzing mock drafts, like the actual NFL mock drafts, to get potential ADP and landing spots. But I mean, it hasn't happened yet.
So
it's true. So he could go up a little bit. And obviously, he tested as the number one guy.
I'll tell you right now, I want him over David Bell. I want him over Christian Watson.
Yes,
I want him over any other second receiver there, and I probably would take him over Jahan Doxson
No,
Pickens would be where I start to debate because man crush is the only reason why.
He's currently the number one wide receiver in this class, right? As of the pre-draft report that is out there now, and like 2 years ago, I think last year was Jamar Chase, and then the year before that was Gabriel Davis, and look where Gabriel Davis is now, right? I'm in on Sky Moore. Like, give me Sky Moore, especially at that price in a class where we don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right.
Like, give me Sky Moore.
There are two guys that I think I would rather have over Sky Moore, but that's not to say I don't like Sky Moore. So my perspective on Sky Moore was basically this. He runs one hell of a slant route with the ability to get vertical. Not overly agile or quick in his routes, but very solid on his positioning. Very solid route trees, very well refined. Running back type vision and instincts, which is where I do think the Elijah Moore comparison kind of comes into play, because he does have that type of vision and instincts. Almost like mini Deebo Samuel is kind of what I saw watching him with the ball in his hands, especially around the line of scrimmage and how he runs. He's fast enough to work deep, but primarily does work inside. Again, not a ton of elite traits, but just a very well-rounded player. Nothing that says, hey, here's alpha characteristics. So the guy that I compared him to is actually the guy that just reset the whole damn wide receiver market.
Christian Kirk?
It was Christian Kirk because of the ability to go inside and outside as a receiver. And then I did make the note that he does have those running back instincts and the ability to do Deebo things, but in a smaller package. So, I can see the Elijah Moore comparisons as well. But as a receiver, I definitely saw a lot of Christian Kirk to his game with the ability to play some Deebo in there. But
which is the best comparable to Elijah Moore. So, I mean, it's obviously...
Yeah.
This archetype of receiver, it's what's starting to truly take off. It's the slot flanker guys.
So it's interesting that while you were talking there, Chris, you mentioned that he isn't twitchy enough, and I just kind of wanted to bring up kind of the Moore Tate comparable, because I don't even think I even really looked at it like this. But they're both 5'10". 195, 199 at the time that they were prospects. Both entering at age 21. Both had a 40% dominator rating. I'm just going to go ahead and round there. And they had a Golden Tate 4.42, Sky Moore 4.41. Vertical leap, Golden Tate 35, Sky Moore 34.5. Broad jump 120 for Tate, 125 for Moore. So maybe a little more explosive there.
Yeah, which is good.
20-yard shuttle, 4.34 for Golden Tate, 4.32 for Sky Moore. And the 3-cone, which I was like, oh, yep, there's Sky Moore not having a good 3-cone, which was what you basically saw on film, 7.13. Golden Tate,
that's
7.12.
And
his agility score is fucking horrible.
For players like Sky Moore, I will say this. That's where the vision comes into play, though, and that's where the ability to be able to pick through traffic like a running back comes into play. Because if you're a touch slow and being able to react, if you can see it a touch quicker than most other people can, then you're going to be able to mask it and balance it out. And that is something that I do see Sky Moore doing, which is why I made the vision note.
He's probably the most popular. I think the most universally, besides maybe Garrett Wilson, the most universally liked. That's also why a fun comp him to Elijah Moore is because I don't think anyone last year hated Elijah Moore, disliked them. It was on a spectrum of good to love, and that's where Sky Moore generally is for most people.
And I got him at good. I got him at probably going to be very good. I'm not in love because I also think he's going to go higher than two other guys that I think I'm definitely going to plant flags in. But, big fan of Sky Moore.
Yeah.
Nonetheless. All right.
Same.
I just drank the last of my beer, so we're going to have to do that real quick.
I'm on beer, too. We should probably want to try to lump up our favorites.
Yeah, we're going we'll talk to the back end. Let me see where that drop off is. We'll hit a beer review real quick. But
okay.
Beer review.
All right. I'll go ahead because I've got to do it while this is still fresh in mind. So I had Old Irving Brewing Company's double dry hopped India Pale Ale. Checks in at 6.9%. It's a good IPA. I get a lot of the juicy citrus that you're going to get out of Citra and Mosaic hops. It's pretty nicely balanced out with the bitterness in this beer. The citrus hangs around a lot, so again, it's not harsh from a bittering perspective. I would consider this a very drinkable IPA. It's a little bit on the creamier side. So, very well balanced, very easy to drink, and yeah, I normally take a sip when I do.
It's a hazy IPA. Like
it's a hazy IPA. Yeah,
there literally isn't much more you can add.
It's the Sky Moore of hazy IPAs. It's very, very solid. It didn't blow my socks off, but I think it's gonna have a good career.
Oh man, I love it. So now we're gonna do player. Oh my god, remember the player comps of beer episodes?
Oh yeah, we should do more of those.
Those are fun. I'll start one with this one. This is so I did Urban Forest Brewing out of Rockford, Illinois. I did their Pilsner Glass Slipper. I've drank 1.5 of these. I'm working on the second one right now. Obviously, from a look perspective, obviously you can look through it. It's very clean. I want to say that they probably dry hop the hops that they use because it doesn't come off as a dry or bittering. It's more of a light floral juiciness to it. Again, very light, very crisp, very, very solid beer. This is also the Sky Moore of beers. Solid all around. As we continue to do a little more of these lager-based kind of beers on the show, as you kind of bring back more of the European feel to it. Solid Pilsners are a good way for me to get invested into your brewery because it helps to highlight your brewmaster and his ability to actually make beer and not hide it behind loads amounts of dry hopping or a shit ton of adjuncts, which is what was the common trend over the past about 3 or 4 years. What are you pouring over there now?
Just Woodinville Port.
Okay.
One of my favorite finish pours, just kind of my go-to when I want something that's easy to drink and not super high proof towards the end of these episodes. And really, a lot of that's predicated by the fact that normally I'd run over the beer keezer, but everything in there right now is festival beers that I'm trying to conserve, so I had to find a bourbon.
Miguel, you want to give the fine people your thoughts on the Sippin' Pretty?
Sure. So it's got the Sippin' Tropical Sour, it's pineapple, passion fruit, tangerine. It's really easy to drink. If you're hot summer day, like and if you're into sours, I love it. It's got my vote of approval. I think it's better than last year's version, to be honest. And I like last year's.
I need you to go up and pick up some Distill when you're out running around getting beer. Go pick up the brewery that I work for.
Oh, I've had Distill before. I might even still have 1 or 2 in my beer fridge.
I got a 6-year of Hawaii 5 Ale upstairs.
Nice.
Good go-to girl.
But if there's something new you want me to try, let me know.
Peach Cobbler. That's their new sour. We don't have our Minnesota rep anymore, so I'm not entirely sure if it's out there yet, but it definitely should be.
All right. So we're going to pick up wide receivers again. I think we'll round table this and each give. So we'll go in a circle 2 to 3 times, depending on who we cover. And kind of wrap with the wide receiver side. Then we'll do because I put tight ends in the episode, we'll do a real quick blurb on tight ends, which matter less and less every year. Miguel, let's go ahead and start with you. And start with, just name it. Just who's the guy you want to highlight, and we can discuss real quick, and then we'll just keep her rolling.
Let's go with Khalil Shakir.
Oh, buddy. This is one of the guys I was like, yep, I will take them over Sky Moore.
Really? That's interesting. I mean, he pops. He's number 2 right now in the pre-draft report. Obviously, I'm not sure he's going to be able to hang on with the draft capital that he gets, but it's good to know that, his profile checks out before draft capital. What do you like about him?
He's quick. He's agile. He returns punts. He's got spectacular catchability. Has no problem going full extension.
He was used out of the backfield, particularly when they were really short on running backs. They plugged him back there and basically said go. So that tells you that in a copycat league where you've seen Debo have the success he has, and you've seen Cordero Patterson do what he's done, that's a skill set that's in demand. He's got good twitch and wiggle with some balance and yak on intermediate routes. Very solid hands. Knox, speed not necessarily really elite. He could separate a little bit more on routes, which I guess damn him for not being elite at everything. But he's very, very good across the board. And I think it's just, if I'm looking for flaws, I'm nitpicking. He's very, very solid. He was productive. He's got explosiveness to him. He's got versatility to him. Bursty, athletic, and agile. It just looks like an NFL producer to me.
Nice. Yeah, I his closest comp in the model was CD Lamb, which was surprising to me. But everything I've seen, I've liked about him. Obviously, again, he's coming in with a score of 91.2. He's going in second round, which just seems late second round, 209. Which just seems really out of whack from a value perspective. I'd love to try and get some Khalil Shakir. I just don't think it's going to happen in one of my leagues because I'm actually in the league with both of his agents.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah,
that's dope. That's incredible.
They've been working their way up, and that's they signed Khalil Shakir. So I'm guessing one of those two is probably going to take them, which they probably should. So yeah,
I love their client. The other thing I will say about him too is even if he doesn't get high DC, right? So I've in particular have had some good hits on some lower DC guys, and all you got to do is stick on a roster, and that's why I like the fact that he showed he can do some at running back, could do some at wide receiver, that he could return punts, because that's going to kind of and play special teams, because that's going to kind of maximize his ability to find a role on that roster and to be able to stick on a roster if you know that you have an emergency running back, a wide receiver, a punt returner, and a guy that could probably play as a gunner as well if you needed him to.
No, absolutely. Like you got to have that, especially now in this day and age in this league. The fact that they put him at running back, like I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That bumps him up my list a little bit, because obviously it's a copycat league. We're seeing what's happening with Debo. Everyone's going to try to find their own version of that and utilize their own guy in that way.
He had 100.
He could be that 196. It's going to be tough to stand up at that weight, but he may not be used to the extent that Debo is. But the occasional one, that's still points
in college for what it's worth, right? I mean, he was 14, 19, 17, and 21 carries, which for wide receivers is relatively high. In his last two seasons, 148 and 130 yards as a runner. So primarily a wide receiver, but definitely got some running back utilization. And I think, let me see if I can find what game that was. But there was definitely, no, not 2020. Dan, if you got thoughts on Shakir, go ahead. I'm going to see if I can find the game where he was.
No, I mean, he fits the profile with a lot of guys that we like from this class. Speedy slot receiver that can do a lot more when called upon. But, I mean, draft capital. He just needs to stick onto a team. Sticks onto a team, I'll be excited. Gets drafted higher than expected, I'll be excited. I don't have any real qualms to his profile.
I'm guessing
not drafted right now, round 6-7.
Really?
He's supposed to go undrafted?
That's incredible.
He's in. I mean, we got to remember, a lot of mocks aren't going full 7, so he's not going top 4.
Going day 1, day 2.
He's not going to go day 1, day 2, and he'll go somewhere between mid to late day 3. That's expectations. Again, got to preface, not a lot of mocks are going full 7. Not a lot of guys that we trust are going to go full 7. Or at least when I say trust, I mean by guys with insight with these teams.
So he really could be the diamond in the rough of this class.
Him, the guy that I could, I might, I'll talk about if it doesn't get talked about first. Another late round guy who could pop. If things kind of work out in his favor.
It was 7 for 43 in the Colorado State game where he had to work as a change of pace back. For Shakir, by the way.
All right, so he's more like satellite. Got it. Okay. It's not quite Debo.
No, smaller, but still to see him used in that way is something.
I like the versatility.
Yeah.
It's going to help keep him on a team, hopefully.
All right, Dan.
Because he's clearly the best player on their offense.
Who is the guy you want to throw out there, Dan?
We're going to go with someone with a very similar profile, slightly undersized, but just as athletic as Bo Melton from Rutgers.
Okay.
Yes.
A 4-year guy. Obviously, you would love to see him. He's not the biggest. He's definitely not the fastest, but I love his overall profile. And you're looking at a guy who could find himself in the. I've seen early day 3 on him from prospects. As that kind of early day 3 deep threat that could fill into the maybe Darius Slayton, maybe Gabe Davis type of role where he's a deep threat, a downfield threat. I don't know how he looked on film, but he does check off a lot of boxes in terms of his athletic profile. He had an 80th percentile dominator rating at Rutgers, 92nd percentile college target share, late breakout, right? He was just 20 years old, so right in that between that second and third season is where his breakout would fall into. Not getting the respect that some of these other guys will get, but we're talking about size. He's got the slightly less than ideal size at 5'11", $189, but he's got the ideal athleticism and the big playability and the overall usability. I mean, 9th percentile yards per reception isn't great, but he played for Rutgers, so it's about putting the ball in his hands.
And I can't tell you how he looked on film because he missed enough Gate 1 metrics for me to not prioritize his film session. I didn't get just time-wise to this
There's
point.
a lot of receivers that
There's a lot of
watched,
receivers
so I
to get to, and I didn't plug in. There's only a handful of guys I watch based on their athletic performance, so he's one of them that, if he gets the draft capital, I think round 3 or better, then I'll go watch him. So
he won't be day 2. I'd be shocked if he does, but he does.
Or if he lands in
day 3,
or if he lands in a good spot, I'll go watch him. So
yeah,
I mean, there's kind of 3 gates I do to watch film because I don't have the time we did year 1, year 2 to watch hours and hours of film. So for those that haven't heard me say it, the first gate that I'll do for film is based on, your size. So I've got 10 years worth of NFL productivity data plugged in and categorized basically by, stud, NFL producer, just a guy where you just roster depth, et cetera, and categorize that way. And then I just kind of look for a range of a certain thing somebody should hit, to hit what you'd qualify for as an NFL prospect. And that's my gate 1. Can you check enough of those boxes to say, all right, reasonably based on your college productivity for your career, your single season productivity, and or, your measurables. So like your size, your dominator, your breakout age, the things you can tell before you ever get to the combine. Should I watch you? If you don't qualify in that, then I start looking at the player profiler metrics, as I call them. So not your combine numbers, but your size-adjusted speed score, your agility scores, your burst scores, and then, 40 time. And again, that's all quantified. I mean, the bar for 40 is very, very low. But guys like David Bell didn't hit it. It's like, for wide receiver, Bell. It's up in the 4.6s, and he missed. So
it all comes back to David Bell and being disappointed.
I don't have anything on Melton.
Miguel, you got kind of happy.
You got happy about that one.
Yeah, I just think I always get happy when there's guys that just aren't getting enough recognition when I think they might just be as equally good as other people that are getting recognition on.
I think he's going to be he's going to be one of my favorite round 3, round 4. He's not even being drafted right now.
Right. I think
Ryan's mocks.
I think Bo Melton is a classic example of a guy that's just completely overlooked. He's 5'11", 189, which in this day and age in the NFL is fine. He had a 33% dominator rating. He broke out at, let me close this up. What is he?
Broke out at 20.
Age 20, which is fine. And then his combine metrics, I mean, the guy's an athlete. 4.34 40, 38-inch vert, 4.10 20 shot, put up 18 on the bench. Like, dude can get after it. So there's nothing really like a huge blemish on his profile, other than maybe he's not the most elite prospect of all time, but he's definitely in the range of being good.
So the athletic profile for me
undervalued.
The athletic profile for me would check out perfectly. I can tell you that just looking at it, and the only other guys that checked 100%, there's only one other guy that I did a workup on so far that checked 100% of those boxes, and it was Khalil Shakir.
They're very similar in terms of their athletic build, their size. It's just their use is different. He played at fucking Rutgers.
Yeah,
his highest single season is 638 yards, 6 touchdowns,
which is why he didn't.
He just doesn't get.
Yeah.
He's a worse off Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore in the sense of the offense is what truly ruined his production profile.
Yeah, and he went to Rutgers because he's from the area. Is what
nice guy. He just wants to be around mom more.
Right, it was his hometown school, and he wanted to go there.
Sorry,
his ADP's about to rise now.
He would have missed the breakout age, so it would have been 506, but that still puts him in company with guys like Christian Watson and Sky Moore and Alec Pierce and Tyquan Thornton from an athletic profile perspective, which is very, very good. So
yeah,
it's really good. I think he's undervalued. He's someone who's definitely flying under the radar. Obviously, when he starts the season, he'll be 23, and if he's a day 3 pick at 23, it's going to be a while for.
It's not lovely. Yeah,
there's that headwind. So let's acknowledge that. But that's what you get for being a day 3 pick. So. But if you're drafting in the 4th, 5th round and you need someone, I would rather have him over just about anyone else that you can mention that'll be available at that point. So yeah, give me all the Bo Melton.
So day 3 pick that could go in the 3rd round perfectly sums up my guy who has a best comparable of Adam Thielen, which is not a bad thing. I actually like him more than. I kind of grouped them together, and I can't remember why that was. I think they were the only 2 guys that had perfect something. No.
Perfect something.
Perfect something.
It was gate. So perfect like the name of a band. Statistical measures. Gate 1. I'm looking at the wrong damn thing. That had near perfect gate 1 numbers, and it was right there with. What the hell am I looking at? I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry. Yeah, perfect gate 1 numbers is what the reason they got grouped together. I'm down on the wrong player. Sorry. So let me start that over. I grouped Jahan Dotson with this guy because they're the only 2 that checked every gate 1 box I look at. Size, productivity for your career, for a single season, et cetera, et cetera. They were also very similar as far as their athletic metrics, but that's Jalen Tolbert, who I like just as much as Jahan Dotson, but he's going a lot later. He's going rookie ADPs in the 3rd round. So he is 23. This is a guy you hope gets high,
Round 3 DC is just projected right now. It's supposed to be a late day 2 pick.
And I would be all over that. And that's going to put him right where I want him. But, when I watched this film, first things first, I saw something I've never really seen a receiver do, and he rolled off of defenders. It was almost like watching an NBA player get off of an off-ball screen. Just rolling around defenders to get open. He literally shouldered into them, then spun move off of them to get open. Never seen that. It was very unique from a route running perspective. He's got easy agility and smooth speed, consistent contested ball ability, solid route running, showed he knew how to separate, did have occasional drops, but
I thought that was offset enough by his ability to like catch a ball one-handed while running deep and having his other arm held, for example, or completely lay out for these things. So he's got all the makings of, I think, an NFL wide receiver one. And had he produced at a larger school than what he did, I think he absolutely would have been considered in that category. I don't know what the story is there to why he wasn't. But we've seen small school guys, and I bring up guys like Corey Davis that have found success in the NFL. Cortland Sutton was another one where it does knock them down a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised to see if he does for him to have a better career than a guy like Dotson or Mechie or George Pickens even. All guys that are going ahead of Jalen Tolbert. So, I very much like what I saw out of him, and he's a guy that I'm going to be eyeballing, especially if his draft capital in rookie draft stays about there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much locked up with you there. He's really closely ranked with Jahan Dotson right now, but all of those kind of tiers are basically the same at this point. I comped him to Marvin Jones. I thought that's who he kind of reminded me the most, especially as we were going through the model to find him a comp. Also, Derek Brown on Twitter recently comped him to Marvin Jones as well. I think that was this morning. So not the only one there, in good company with that comp. I'm excited about him. I would agree as well. If I could, trade down and get Jalen Tolbert, I'd probably be just as happy as having Jahan Dotson, and more happy than having George Pickens. So yeah, he's definitely
easy on the George Pickens hate, guys. Jesus Christ,
it's not hate.
I know. I'm just fucking.
Sky Moore's got. He's also the other kind of small school guy on this list, but at least he's got more hype. There's more happening there. So I think from and I like to prop up the small school guys that don't get a lot of attention. And I think that maybe this year Jalen Tolbert is that ideal candidate of the small school guy that could really surprise people.
He does what he's supposed to do. He dominates, 51.2% dominant rating, 96th percentile on a 95th percentile college target share. And he's still at a 68th percentile yards per catch, so he's still being utilized downfield. If he's going to get late day 2, I mean, everything checks off the box. We just hope that he gets a landing spot that's going to yield early, early starting time. I mean, round 3, there's still a decent enough projection that he should start at some point in his first year, which is what these 23-year-old guys, what you want to see. You don't want to wait too long on these guys to hit. So if they can get a starting job right away, Tolbert, I think, has the overall profile, which why a lot of people like him. I mean, I don't think people are going to be that high on him even after the draft.
One metric where he pops, and this isn't part of the model. I was playing around with it, is why I bring it up, because I was thinking of including it this year, but decided against it. But it's the yards per team pass attempt. Anything over 3 is elite, and he's a 3.63. So that it might be one of the highest in the class. I think Sky Moore might be the highest at 3.77. So both of the small school guys just absolutely crushed it there, which shows that
they're supposed to do that, right? Small
right.
school,
that's
should
that's
dominate.
What you want to see, right? Like
absolutely.
Just like a 2, right, which is like an average. Pause. I would definitely pause. But this is just further confirming that, like, hey, this guy can probably ball.
Yeah, and small school guy getting in late day 2 is the perfect DC. These guys have a hard enough time getting round 1. You're being able to get round 2, round 3. It's a home run. So
yeah,
we're all lock and step on Jalen Tolbert.
I do have a hard time following how Player Profiler does their comps, because it's not just athleticism, but I tend to like them. And for Tolbert, you end up with Adam Thielen, trace back to Eric Decker, trace back to Keenan Allen. So that's a good list.
It's top 5 right now. Is Adam Thielen, Sidney Rice, Antonio Holmes, Josh Reynolds, and Greg Jennings.
That's pretty good.
So, 4 of those 5 have been very,
really
very
good
productive.
company.
We haven't had a small school guy really come out and dominate since Adam Thielen, I don't think. So
Asher Doolin, potentially.
Potentially, right. Justin Watson. Oh, hey, I mean that.
Where is he now? Like
Kansas
isn't he
City.
in Indy? Oh, yeah, so he's in Kansas City now. That's right. They have all the.
They don't have Tyrese.
Therese Fountain. They have all the all the fun small school guys.
Yeah, they have all the small school guys I've touted over the years. So yeah, big on Tolbert. Glad you brought him up. I've only got one more guy.
Okay, yep. Go ahead. Throw your one more.
I got
out
nobody
there.
left, so you're good.
Okay, you take one more. I'll take one more because I can find one more to talk about.
Alec Pierce.
Attaboy.
Yeah, that'd be
I mean, this guy was just talk about under the radar for like a majority of this offseason. Then he went to the combine and just crushed it. Let me see if I can pull up what he accomplished here really quick. So he went to the combine, ran a 4.33, jumped 40.5 inches, had a broad jump of 129, 20-yard shuttle 4.28, and then not so great 3-cone of 7.13.
Yep.
But overall, his adjusted speed score is 123. I mean, the guy is just bananas. But he's like 6'3", 211. I've seen, I think it was Chris Sims comped him a little bit to like, kind of, this might ruffle feathers, but like DK Metcalf. So, I'm not worried about the 3-cone drill is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So let's just put that to bed. And he's got a really athletic family. Like his dad played college football, may have played in the NFL. I forget. I saw an interview where Alec Pierce was talking about that. I forgot if his dad played in the NFL or not, but he definitely played college ball. And that's where his dad met his mom, who was a volleyball player and the more athletic one in the family. And then he also played volleyball throughout high school, which explains his insane hops and why he can jump and get the ball and just, do all that. So,
yeah.
The guy's pretty phenomenal, and I don't think he's gotten the credit that he deserves. I think he in the pre-draft model, he's right at the top tier with Khalil Shakir and Sky Moore, and most people are dismissing him because he didn't have the elite, 1,500-yard season, 10 touchdowns, whatever in college. But Desmond Ridder was his quarterback. I don't know about you guys. I don't think Desmond Ridder is anything. I think he, is pretty robotic, kind of looks like the part, but really doesn't have it. Like mechanically looks really good, but otherwise is not a quarterback. So I think he was likely more, he probably propped up Ridder more than Ridder propped up Pierce, but was also likely held back by Ridder at the same time.
Well, and the fact that it's a team that ran enough to make Garrett Dokes look like a viable running back. So.
I mean, against Alabama, Pierce had the cornerbacks scared. And they still weren't throwing him the ball because Cincinnati, they didn't have the offensive line that can get him the ball. But he was blowing past guys. His release is crazy. He can stack you quick.
He gets 2 and 3 steps on guys easily, is what I noticed. And it doesn't look like, if you didn't have the combine numbers in front of you, it doesn't look like he plays that fast. But he's constantly behind guys too. So it's like just this easy release and stride that gets it done. But to the athletic perspective, I mean, 90th percentile 40, 95th percentile speed, 94th percentile burst, 96th percentile catch radius. The other reason that people aren't high on him is Dominator was only 25.2. But Cincinnati, they really didn't utilize him.
We must be doing Dominator differently. I've got him at 34.
Yeah,
I do the adjusted now.
I don't think they're doing adjusted.
I don't know if Player Profile does that, but adjusted he's 34.
I will say this also. He was the best guy I saw on tape this year at finding soft spots in zone. Like the dude absolutely, he can go deep. He destroyed zone in the short and intermediate game though too. And just knowing when to sit down and find those soft spots and be available to his quarterback. He was very, very good at that. Just the quick twitch and acceleration didn't really show. The burst score's there. The release is there. So I think my acceleration comment's probably off. The quick twitch, okay, yeah, probably. He's an outside threat with size that can work over the middle. If there's a Cooper Kupp-like receiver in this draft, I would say it might be Pierce minus the college productivity.
Interesting. Yeah, I comped him to DJ Chark.
DJ Chark's another good comp for him. The ability to destroy zone coverage, I think, is the reason that I was kind of Kupp side, not so much the deep ball ability. So I
hear he grew up a Green Bay Packers fan, and that
they could use them.
Matt LaFleur is close friends with the Cincinnati wide receiver coach.
So
just putting that out there into the ether.
You know what I find awesome, by the way, Miguel? Your tier 1 is Alec Pierce, Khalil Shakir, and Sky Moore. And I have all of those guys tiered up. Not quite as high, which is probably just a difference in, model and incorporating film. But I also have all of those guys just grouped together is very, very similar from productivity, from an athletic perspective, and from the way that I rated them on film. So just an interesting little tidbit that, even though we've got them in kind of different spots amongst our tiers, that tier is literally the same.
Yeah, no, that is interesting.
So, all right, the other guy that I'm going to talk about is Mechie, because I think that he deserves airtime. And then I also think he's the only one we didn't talk about the only other two guys I watch I don't really want to talk about. They're Justin Ross and Tyquan Thornton. So we'll go ahead and hit Mechie because I actually have good things to say about him. So, I thought it was interesting earlier when, I guess it was the hype train reason on Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, but I thought Mechie had some Calvin Ridley to his game. He was an intelligent route runner, lulled defenders to sleep. He had a lot of nuances that he used there that I thought helped him out and helped him with getting open, which were very developed and kind of advanced. And again, that's just something that even since year 1 with Cooper Kupp, I've been relatively adept at picking out at how guys are winning. And, Mechie's doing it intelligently. Is a runner. Thought the lateral movement was good. He set up blocks well, accelerated well. Top end speed wasn't fantastic, but he did have the ability for big plays, which just seems to be everybody at Alabama has big play ability for whatever reason. It doesn't matter if it translates to the NFL or not. For some reason at Alabama, they can all just do that.
Offense is so spread out. They're all one-on-one with great accurate quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It just wins.
Solid hands. So I just overall thought Mechie was a very, very solid prospect that absolutely had wide receiver 2 upside at the NFL level. So I didn't want to get through here without giving him airtime. He did have this weird thing about high stepping when he was about to get tackled mid-route. I saw that like 3 times, which I thought was a real weird flex because you're high stepping and you're about to get tackled. And I don't know if it's just something he does to slow his momentum maybe to try to change direction or what that was all about. But it didn't seem like a showboating thing necessarily. It seemed like he actually incorporated a high step for some reason. And I don't know why. Just that's not one of those things I take into the evaluation at all. It was just a really weird observation. Not a lot of contested ball opportunities. And again, just because Alabama's spread out and always open. Torn ACL is going to work against him. He's a little smaller size-wise, 6'0", 6 foot 195. But he can do some things with the ball in his hands near the line of scrimmage. And, the route running ability with the solid hands, the ability to break plays. I do think that he's another guy that, you can put, maybe not necessarily, doesn't have to play inside, but into almost a wide receiver 2, doesn't need to be an alpha, but potentially a Calvin Ridley role when Julio Jones was around, for example, and have him be successful at that.
It's like the most stocky, I think, Bama receiver we've had in 3 years at 5'11". Our player profiler's got him at 5'11", $189.
Yeah,
he's still slightly small, but he's not Jameson Williams where he's under $180 or Devonta Smith who's barely $170. I like the fact that he was still able to draw a bunch of targets. 26.9% a college target share, and a loaded receiving room is fantastic. It's. I'm just not overly impressed with the Bama receivers. I think they're just. I mean, again, they're good prospects. They're overhyped because they played for Bama, and I think Mechie at least isn't going to go round 1. Most mocks have him at round 3. That might be because of the injury. I think he'll end up being the better value, and I still like his skill set to fit in today's NFL. It's just
what do we think he would have run as a 40?
Well, his high school metric is 4.6 flat, probably high 4.4 to low 4.5.
I think his game film projects to mid to high 4.4s.
That generally is the realm of outcome.
So he really is poor man's Henry Ruggs, because they're both 5'11", one call it 188. Neither of them broke out. The only thing that Ruggs had is a feather in his cap. He could run 4.27.
Totally different skill.
He was also more productive, and he has a different skill set.
Yeah,
Jamin Williamson's more Henry Ruggs. I get that,
but like neither of them did it. And the one thing that Henry Ruggs you could count on him for is having that elite trait. When we're sitting here saying Mechie doesn't have that elite trait.
The best thing about it is that Mechie is, instead of being a round 1 pick like Ruggs was, a turn pick, Mechie's a turn 2-3 pick.
Right.
So the cost of getting them is significantly less. And that's why when you compare him to Jameson Williams in terms of what his cost is going to be in this year's class, Mechie, I don't think is going to be far off worse than his product. It's just, again, landing spot and what the uses are going to be. They're both going to be early declares, which is they're both coming in youngish. Mechie will be 22 when the season starts.
Yeah, right now I've got Mechie and basically dead last in this class. But,
So PSI hates him. Fucking him off of him then.
That's where Jalen Waddle was last year, but there was no model that it would ever make Jalen
Waddle is tough. Yeah, right.
Yeah. He was a film guy, not a...
Unless you're projecting his you're projecting his 4-game sample.
There was no metric that would make Jalen Waddle look good. So, there's that if you want to take that to the bank. But, I'm not going to bet on Mechie.
Perfect landing spot for Waddle.
Pre-draft, I got Mechie tier 3, which puts him at like the wide receiver 10 to 12 range. So, I mean, it's not to say I'm super high on Mechie because I'm not, but I definitely think he's good enough and a good enough prospect to deserve the discussion, which I will not say the same things for Justin Ross or Tyquan Thornton, although Thornton probably will get draft capital because of his 40 time. Some team will do it.
Ross is early day 3, I think.
Tyquan Thornton, I mean, this whole process through PSI this year is surprising. If you would have asked me who would have been the top receivers in this class and what this would look like, I would have had a completely different list. But yeah, Tyquan Thornton just popped on everything. And I was like, who is this guy?
Right.
Unfortunately, he's got tiny hands, which I'm not thrilled with. But
Tyquan Thornton's a guy that was literally the guy I watched at 1 a.m. last night because I looked at his athletic profile and I said, holy shit, I should probably have an opinion on this guy. And then I watched his tape and I was real disappointed I didn't take the extra 20 minutes of sleep.
His best comparable is Robbie Anderson.
I comped him to, I think, Paul Richardson. I think that's who
That's got to be one of it's. I mean, it's very similar blade style. I mean, athletic build too.
Which is I'll
rely on you two for this last question. Anybody we care about at tight end that's worth discussing pre-draft until we see landing spots in capital?
It's the only one that's worth.
There's only
Bride. It's the only one that's going day 2.
I think Bride's overrated. I don't think he's better than Dulcich or Jelani Woods. I think Jelani Woods might have the biggest.
He's the other one too.
I think Jelani Woods might have the biggest upside, but he's definitely very raw. Mm-hmm. He's only made the switch recently to tight end. But if he can maximize that, watch out.
He's the one that you should care about in round 4 or 5 of your rookie drafts. Let people take McBride round 2 and just take Woods at the back end of round 3, 4. 5.
Woods is huge.
Yeah, it's James. I think his name is James Mitchell.
James Mitchell.
From
Virginia Tech.
Let's say Virginia Tech. Yeah,
it is.
He's gone under the radar because I don't know if he tore his ACL or something. He's injured, and that's why he hasn't been, on the circuit, and no one's heard anything from him. So he's got no athletic measurables. So who knows? He's a black box there.
Oh my!
I will say that.
Lord, Jelani Woods.
Yeah, but
yeah, he's he hits the hyper athletic.
He's
what we love to see from an athletic build.
He ran a 4.6. An 11.28 agility score. That's insane.
He's got good numbers too.
Yeah, dude's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, so James Mitchell though hits on a lot of the things that I look for in a tight end. The yards per reception, his he didn't do an agility score, but he benched. He got 18. That's fine. His BMI, his draft age, it's all there. I like him a lot, and I think no one knows who he is because he's been a ghost. I think had he measured, it would have been really nice to see kind of where he'd come in. But I'm a Dulcich Mitchell Woods over McBride. I just think McBride's overrated.
I mean, it's basically he's the only tight end that is getting any significant buzz in terms of day 2.
And the only reason McBride rose is because he had the Senior Bowl where people went and he balled out, he was catching everything. It's sure.
I mean, I'd be more impressed if he had a better athletic profile, but he hits the denominator and
1,100
he
yards
hits the production
on 90 receptions is not something you see out of college that often. Best comparable comes up is Heath Miller, which gives me a lot of Pat Fryermuth vibes, not just because they're both Steelers tight ends. I mean, that's so you're talking middle of the road because the athletic metrics are not.
They're good enough.
If you gave me Trey McBride, they're good enough. But if you gave me Trey McBride, we're just going to build a tight end. I'll take Trey McBride's productivity and Jelani Woods' athletic profile and body, and we'll call it good.
So basically, Woods with production. Jelani Woods with production.
Give me Woods with production, and I'm fine.
Yeah. And that's about as much tight end talk as we need because
this class,
the guy from Texas Tech from Texas A&M, Jalen Watermeyer, also massive Debbie prospect that just completely tanked. I mean, he was basically the Kyron Williams of tight end. Like his metrics are just fucking horrible.
I mean, here's where Debbie goes wrong. That should be a podcast where Debbie goes wrong. and this year it's Jalen Woodmeyer, David
507. He ran a 507.40.
And Kyron Williams, or maybe you want to throw in who's the running back that everyone was comping to CMC a couple years ago, and now
Max Borghi.
Yeah, and now no one even realizes he's in the draft.
He's actually not the worst. Like he's actually put on weight, and because they got rid of Mike Leach, I like Mike Leach, and he had to actually become a running back. So, he's like a round 4, round 5 guy that's got at least.
I remember when Borghi was talking about us being like that, and then here's where just Debbie gets.
It's stupid. Wrong. It was so dumb. I knew
people that actually was wrong. I'm like, no, and here we are, like complete afterthought in the draft. Yeah. But yeah, those 3 guys are probably it this year. Isaiah Likely, in on him? No, I'm not.
Nah,
I say it's likely. Charlie Kolar didn't test bad either, and he checked boxes. So I'm just looking at statistical profiles and pulling up the athletic ones. Charlie Kolar actually looks like
speed score was fine.
Likely it's probably fine.
He's
actually Kohler failed the bench, and that's important for tight ends. He completely failed that. Otherwise, his agility was fine.
Yeah, he was.
Kohler, I'm not in on.
I don't really care about the tight ends.
After the top 4, I could give a flying hoot about the rest.
Likely would not. And the burst is fine, but just looking across the board at his athletic metrics, I mean, check the box from productivity, but the athletic metrics would probably have me mostly out on him.
Yeah, it's like a Kyle Rudolph terms. He's not fast, but he's probably going to box out. Right offense, he's productive. Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't run at the combine considering how fast that track was. Because he went to his pro day.
His pro day is horrible. It was 4.88. That's not like Jalen Wademeyer bad, but it's bad.
It's bad.
But Briscoe's great, which is it's just it's important for the tight end position.
Yeah. So
Charlie Cole.
Yeah.
Charlie Kohler.
I don't think anyone goes before round 3 though. I think
McBride's been.
I think Dulcich and McBride go round 3.
McBride. I've said it was a Todd McShay, Mel Kiper dual mock draft, and they had the Vikings taking McBride in the second round, and I about fucking threw my phone.
Outside of like being a truly elite tight end like Kyle Pitts, which then at that point the draft capital is given. Draft capital really doesn't matter for tight ends.
Well, it constantly fails us.
Neither does breakout age. It's basically
breakout age is just
It's basically do you have one?
My biggest I don't even factor in breakout age when I'm looking at.
Well,
them.
No, because it's do you have one? That's it.
Yeah, I think what I found to be the most interesting is that age in general doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter for shit. I noticed that too.
It doesn't matter at all.
It's because the learning curve is so fucking steep that they almost relearn the position when they come over.
Like, I know we gave Hayden Hurst a lot of shit for being old and being first round pick, and yes, the Ravens were wrong for doing that, but obviously they made up for it later in that same draft.
And Hurst has still been kind of productive, even then.
He's still been kind of productive. He should have been like a maybe third or fourth round pick.
Him and Andrews, I'm not saying should have switched. Yeah, both of them should have been third round.
They should have flip flopped, but
the drop off for draft capital at tight end, I've got it as like 5th round. So
it just doesn't matter. So if you're in leagues where people care about age and they see that, like, capitalize on it, because it does not matter.
No, it absolutely does not matter.
Because a lot of these guys aren't hitting until 2-3 years in anyway. So who cares? All right, that's a show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to go back and check out the newly uploaded with real audio episode with Brad Starks from Roto Lounge last week, where we talked running backs and quarterbacks. That was a drunk fest. A lot better analysis on this show, I can tell you that. But ton of entertainment on the last one. So make sure you check that out. If for whatever reason I'm lazy and don't fix the audio tonight, check it out on YouTube, Beerfield Podcast, where you'll also be able to find this. Little editor's note, we will not be doing a live stream for the draft for the first time ever. We will not have a show next week. Dan and I are just going to hang out and drink and watch it, and then there's a slight possibility we may record like a quick reaction episode. We might just hang out with some people on a Zoom call. We haven't really decided yet. We're going to watch it together, but everybody and their mother started doing live streams over the last couple of years, and it was more work than it was worth. Juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so we're just going to hang out and take a couple days off and watch the draft and throw some discs around and drink some stuff. And so nothing coming next week because we just covered a lot of it. We will be back the week after with draft recap episodes and to be determined guest. We're working on a roundtable for that, I think. So,
yep.
Oh, it is next Thursday. Dang.
Yeah, it's coming up quick.
I didn't realize that.
So, thank you guys for tuning in. One more time, Miguel, where can people find your information? Where can they find you?
They can find my information at profootballpsi.com or FFFaceoff. And they can find me on Twitter at ProFootballPSI.
And we've asked the last 2 years for the overview of PSI. We knew this would be a long show, so we didn't this time. So if you want to read on what all goes actually into PSI, there's a fantastic write-up on that on Miguel's blog, as well as on FFFaceoff.com that goes into all the details of how that gets put together. You can also see his pre-draft article and go back through the last several years on ProFootballPSI.com, and be sure to tune in there for his post-draft article as well. I am at Beerfield Hop with 2 P's. My co-host, my esteemed co-host, is at Beerfield Thury.
I'm on his good side again.
Oh, yeah. Weird how much changes in 2 hours
it's weird
and
when
45
booze is
minutes.
involved. Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So until then, enjoy the time without us. I know I will.
Yay. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yay.